seen that thing? It's at least 10 cubits high.
Now, who killed Pope Francis? I mean, in a way, we all did. But more specifically, J.D. Vance. We might have killed the Pope.
Might, allegedly.
It appears.
Did you know that they're not allowed to do an autopsy on the Pope? It's like one of their rituals. So we'll never know.
We may never know. But today we are remembering Pope Francis in the only way that we know how, and that's by going back through the years, through the Babylon Bee's coverage of Pope Francis.
I think that's the best thing we can do, considering we're not Catholic.
It's what he would have wanted.
Yes.
So the first one, we're going to go all the way back to 2018. This might have been one of the first Babylon Bee articles on Pope Francis. Pope leaves factory sticker on his hat to garner street cred.
It is weird to me that people leave things on their hat.
Sticker, yeah. I was wearing a hat this morning and I forgot that I left the sticker on, and everybody thinks that I'm a big cheese bag.
Yeah, it's sad. But you got all that street cred.
I did.
So this article says death penalty still permissible for people who drive slowly in the left lane.
That's a nice carve out because he was against the death penalty, but he's like, you know what? I like to picture that he was in his Pope mobile, and an old lady was driving in front of him, and he's like, ex cathedra.
Yeah.
Death penalty for this one. Pope announces that any time spent watching The View counts as time served in purgatory. Another nice carve out. Wisdom from our gracious Pope.
Embarrassed Pope suddenly realizes he's been reading the Bible upside down this whole time.
I mean, really a mistake that any of us could have made.
I mean, the Pope is not infallible.
It's true. Giant cloud of dust emerges from Vatican as Pope Francis opens his Bible. See, the Babylon Bee is balanced and two-sided, three-sided sometimes.
Active.
Because we point out that the Pope did read his Bible.
Yeah, not his fault it was dusty.
Happens to anybody.
Pope Francis announces passing of final Catholic Pope.
Benedict passed away. It's at the end of an era.
Yeah, and there were no more Catholics.
Pope announces church may bless same-sex couples as long as the priest ends his blessing with no home.
Yeah, we may not be Catholic, but that's a tradition we keep in office.
All good things come to an end. You know what else comes to an end? Pope Francis. And this is the Babylon News coverage of the passing of the Pope this week.
CNN, behind closed doors, is still focused, sharp, and energetic. You see, it's funny because it's a picture of a CNN anchor and the Pope in coffin.
Dalai Lama quietly cancels his scheduled meeting with J.D. Vance. Now that's just a smart call.
I mean, we don't know that J.D. Vance killed the Pope, but I mean, he was one of the last people.
We don't know, but J.D. Vance looked to camera.
Easter Bunny dead after meeting with J.D. Vance. Again, they cannot prove J.D. Vance killed Easter Bunny, but he was one of the last.
Correlation is not equal to causation.
Except for when it correlates.
All right, here's another one. The next Pope will be chosen via Ninja Warrior obstacle course. I wonder if they're more likely to get a Catholic Pope if they do something like that.
Well, they're certainly more likely to get a fit Pope.
And a ninja Pope.
Catholic Church to consider electing Pope who's a Catholic this time, which would make sense considering Pope Benedict was the last Catholic.
All right, and now to finish things off, we have the Babylon Bee's exclusive list of the 10 people who are most likely to be elected the next Pope. The first one is Joe Biden. Checks all the boxes. He's 80s, he's Catholic, and he's dead.
But have you considered Kilmar Abrego Garcia? You know, he'd be sure to carry on Francis's fight for open borders around the world.
Next up is Judge James Boasberg. Boasberg. This is a judge, and he's already declared himself president of the United States, and the next logical step is, I am now Pope.
Why not Pope? However, Luigi Mangione may throw his hat into the ring, or should I say his eyebrows, because he's got big ones, and it would instantly make him the most popular pontiff in the church's history.
He has the hat from Super Mario Odyssey.
Oh, yeah, he throws it.
He throws it on the Pope, then he becomes the Pope.
That's right. Will that work on a dead Pope?
Only one way to find out. Mark Driscoll. No further.
Kamala Harris, she's still unemployed, and she will always be eager to bless the wine.
Jack Black. Started Minecraft. Started that band. School of Rock.
He was in
Madagascar. Why not Pope?
Joel Osteen. You know, if he's at the Vatican, was opulent before. We haven't seen anything yet. And I don't even know what opulent means.
Jake. Some Catholic guy that lives down the street. He's got some good ideas. Vance.
Yeah. J.D. Vance, Catholic guy who lives on the East Coast. His position is, it's rightfully his, really. It's like the Darksaber.
You kill the Pope, you become the Pope. You steal the Darksaber, and now you rule Mantle and all Catholics. All right, guys. Well, this concludes the Babylon Bees coverage of Pope Francis, a life and a death, as all lust will face one day, as popes.
Yes. Rest in power.
Rest in power, Pope Francis. What is your favorite thing about Pope Francis? Let us know in the comments.
Was it his hat?
Joining me now is best-selling author Douglas Murray. His latest book on democracies and death cults, Israel and the Future of Civilization, will be released in April. You don't want to miss that. Douglas, let's start with the state of the Democrats in the US. While much of the media is preoccupied with 24/7 anti-Trump hysteria, the polling is
has run out of
showing
charges.
Trump is pretty happy at the moment. But the Democrats are in peril.
A module has run out of charges. A module has run out of charges.
Grim state of affairs with
A module has run out of
Democrats
charges.
facing historic discontent with their base. And as you can see in the graph, the net approval figure for the Republicans and Democrats paints an undeniable picture of a party crisis. Douglas, is this just a case of bitter ideologues reacting to a big election loss and having a bit of a tantrum? Or is there a deeper issue here? Because we are seeing the most radical voices now seemingly taking over the party.
Yes, that's right. I mean, it's inevitable, isn't it, that after an election wipeout like the one that the Democrats suffered last November, it's inevitable that there is going to be a period of reflection, if not silence, from them as they try to work out what to do. That's the case with any party that suffered such a blistering defeat. The interesting thing with the Democrats, you say that they seem to be leaderless. That's really because they are. I mean, it can't be stressed in the American system. I mean, there is, Kamala Harris and what's his name? Waltz. What happened? They drifted away after the election thumping that they got, and it's not like any of the Democratic Party wants to hear very much from either of them after having led them to that defeat. And then the rest of the party, you've got Minority Leader Senator Schumer, who has been castigated by his party for making a budget deal with the Republicans. Nancy Pelosi, the stripling of 84, has criticized Chuck Schumer. And Chuck Schumer has, in fact, cancelled the book tour he was going to go on in the coming days because of threats to him, not from Republicans, but from fellow Democrats. And so that's sort of the top of the party. You go to the layers underneath. Unfortunately, you see, Democrats, you see just this case after case of somebody whose career is in cinders. Governor Gavin Newsom is trying podcasting, and that's because much of the district he was meant to keep an eye on burned to the ground a few months ago, and he didn't do very much to stop that. And so it's hard to see how a little bit of podcasting could make up for that. And it's the same all the way down the party. There are people
A module has
like
run out
Don
of charges.
Lemon, the former CNN anchor who I mentioned in the New York Post, who claimed that the future of the party is the radical left. But in fact, the only future of the party that those people are is they are the future for the Republican Party. Because if the Democratic Party decides to make it the worst excesses in the squad and others, then it's hard to see how the Republicans don't just continue a foreseeable future.
Very much looking at that piece in the New York Post, very droll indeed. But ambitions?
Well, where to even start with Tim Walz? He has talked back up in recent days. First of all, to boast about masculinity and to talk about fun. He believes that he, a man known as Tampon Tim, how much of a threat he was to the Republicans because of his masculinity. Odd sort of thing to be boasting about and roaring about, but there it is, that's Tim Walz. And then he cropped back up
Docking
in front
permission
of,
requested. Docking
some
request
sycophants
accepted.
on stage and talked about how he gets happy each day by he downloaded the share app that apparently you can have to monitor your shares. That's real man of the people stuff right there. And Tim Walz says he's added the Tesla shares to that and was celebrating Tesla shares going down. Tim Walz should look at where his shares politically are right now, and he'd see that they're close to bankruptcy. It's a very pathetic spectacle to see him doing that. The thing that they most need to do, the Democrats, is they need to actually come up with some policies and some ideas that differentiate them from the Republicans. They spent years doing Republicans are fascists, it's the end of the republic, democracy dies in darkness, if you vote in Trump, he's Hitler and it's all over. And it didn't work. It was clearly a total political play, but it also just didn't work. It turned out that the voters didn't believe them, and rightly so. But what do you do in the aftermath of that? They seem to be trying a little bit of stuff out, but they're going to have to put an awful lot more meat on the bone if they're going to look like a really reasonable, respectable party of opposition. And all parties need opposition, all governments need opposition. But apart from a bit of hollering about taxing the rich, there's very little there that the Democrats have to say.
Well, there are signs of the left's love of violence apparent again. It's really never been far away. We saw it with the BLM riots, the violent anti-Israel protests on university campuses, and the latest project seems to be attacking Teslas, Tesla cars, Tesla dealerships, due to their hatred of Elon Musk. And Douglas, I've got to say, those who should know better continue to rationalise what some are calling domestic terrorism.
Someone threw a Molotov cocktail at a Tesla service center. At least 5 Teslas blew up. When you pull out a chainsaw to celebrate firing thousands of people, they get mad. It's just that,
Let's send these techno-fascist, oligarchs, and old-fashioned Nazis a message loud and clear.
The vandalism really shows the outright anger and rage that people are feeling about what Elon Musk is doing.
Douglas, they almost hate Elon Musk more than they hate Donald Trump these days. And this derangement, because it's not just disagreement, they want to see him destroyed.
They do. It's a rather strange turn for people from a political wing that talks about how much they love the environment so much and how they want to protect the environment, to be setting light to anything and burning it down, setting light to cars that run on renewable energy. That's a really great way to say I heart the environment, isn't it? But yes, I mean this any political side can do this, but it's extremely dangerous stuff when you start to say like that. Well, if you cut federal spending, you can't expect people not to firebomb things. I mean, really? We're going there? Why this desire to legitimize totally pointless, destructive political violence? I can only assume that some of these people are people who are very bored, as well as very unpleasant indeed. They want a great cause. They spent years, as I said earlier, saying that Donald Trump was Hitler. Now they've decided, in fact, Elon Musk is Hitler, which means you've got to burn the cars or something, or flip the finger to people driving a certain type of car. Again, nothing shows moderation and be kind better than just swearing at your neighbors because they've got a car whose company is founded by a man whose political views you disagree with. I mean, it's astonishing, but again, this is deadly. This is kryptonite for the Democrat Party. And for people like that guy who showed at the beginning of that clip, he's meant to be, by the way, a late-night comedian. I don't know about you, but I mean, nothing he says is remotely funny. He's just one of these weird new clerics on American television who were hired as comedians and then come out and give a boring lecture and excuse violence and think that will get the big laughs. And we'll see. Well, that's one of the reasons why people are turning off those programs. But it's quite sickening to see that. Because if Republicans did that and said, well, you can only push people so far before they start executing you, I think we'd all think that was a bit rough.
I think we would. I think that we would. We saw a riot on January 6th and they were bleating about it for 5 years. So if, but violence from their side, they seem to rationalise very easily. And you're right about those late night comics. There's a reason why their ratings are in the toilet is because there's very few laughs. There's just lectures, and Greg Gutfeld is the big beneficiary there. Now, talking about celebrities, we've seen a number of them threaten to leave the US if Trump won, and one of them, I've got to give her credit, she followed through with it. Rosie O'Donnell is now a resident of Ireland, and she started spreading election denial there.
I question why the first time in American history a president has won every swing state and is also best friends, and his largest donor was a man who owns and runs the internet. So I would hope that that would be investigated. Kamala Harris was filling up stadiums with people who supported her, and Donald Trump was not able to do that.
There you go, Douglas. Elon apparently owns and runs the internet now, and Kamala was hugely popular, so we need an investigation.
Yes, that's right. And one of the ways you can tell that Elon Musk runs all of the internet is that there are never any negative pieces or a negative comment about Elon Musk on the internet. So, as ever, Rosie O'Donnell is as sharp tact as she ever was. Remember, this is another comedian, by the way. Remember, Rosie O'Donnell. She's hilarious, isn't she? I mean, you can just feel your face cracking up with the humor whenever Rosie appears and opines on the world. As for Donald Trump not filling up stadiums, I mean, that's just bizarre because, of course, I mean, I've been to Trump rallies. He very much fills up stadiums, very much filled up Madison Square Garden in New York and countless other places across the country. Here's one of the problems, of course, for the Democrats. Again, they can be pulled leftward by these now self-exiled comedians like Rosie O'Donnell, who, by the way, probably is having a kind of breakdown because Donald Trump was very largely elected in 2016, very largely won the Republican nomination to run for president because of his line about Rosie O'Donnell, which just got huge laughs and was hugely appreciated by people across the country. But for Rosie O'Donnell and co, if they're going to do this stuff, what it really is a demonstration of denial. What the Democrats and others should face up to is that Donald Trump was and is extremely popular. He won the popular vote because he's popular. He filled up stadiums because he's popular. Sure, Kamala Harris could fill the odd hall. No one is disputing that. But if you've just lost an election to somebody, you don't pretend, or you shouldn't pretend, that person has no popularity behind him. What you should do is work out why he's got it, see what you can do to adapt to the world that you're in, and see what you can learn. See if there are policies that you might learn from. Instead of claiming that he's like faked his way to it, actually adapt and learn. And so yes, I'm not sure Rosie O'Donnell is going to be able to teach the Democrats very much from her escape in Ireland. And by the way that Ireland's going at the moment, it's perfectly possible that Rosie O'Donnell will have to move back to the States at some point soon, but that's another story.
Well, she is in a very insular little echo chamber because in that interview it appeared that she doesn't actually know any Trump voters. So even though more than half the country, half of voters voted for Trump, she doesn't seem to know a single one. So that's Rosie for you. Before you go, just quickly, you wrote a superb piece for The Spectator about the latest attacks against Western civilization. And here we've got Britons being expected to be ashamed of their history, ashamed of things they should be enormously proud of, like Shakespeare. Even Shakespeare's birthplace supposedly should be decolonised, Douglas, because it could be used to promote white supremacy.
Yes, this is the latest report by a dimwit second-rate academic at a third-rate university who, weirdly, cooperating with the Shakespeare Birthplace Trust, and you would have thought the Shakespeare Birthplace Trust would like to celebrate Shakespeare's birthplace, but oh no, not in this era. So this second-rate academic cooperating with the Shakespeare Birthplace Trust, and Shakespeare's racist and colonialist, maybe calls the colonial era himself, unclear, and also this struck me is a notorious media base and white supremacist. It's always struck me, Rita, as I'm sure it has you, that in whatever remaining skinheads there might be, they're forever gathering at places of poetry, like Stratford-upon-Avon, and reading sonnets. It's one of the things I think it's one of the ways you spot those guys. It's so preposterous, and by the way, the important thing about this is, and as I said in that piece in Spectator, it points to this central issue that we are being told in our countries, in America, in Britain, in Australia, in all Western countries, we are being told all the time to be ashamed of our inheritance. And there's no reason to be ashamed of our inheritance. But what's weird about it is that we are being told it all the time, and it's always a one-way street. This business with Shakespeare's birthplace, they've decided that one of the things is there's too much Shakespeare at Shakespeare's birthplace. And they've decided, among other things, to introduce more of a celebrated Bengali poet called Tagore. Now, if I went to Tagore's birthplace in Bengal and said, guys, you need some more Shakespeare here, it's really not on that you haven't got another poet that you're celebrating at the birthplace of this poet, I think people would think it was rather audacious. Well, guess what? We in England, we in Britain also think it's rather audacious, it's rude, and, to use a term, it's rather colonizing.
Indeed. Douglas Murray, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Pleasure as always.
Joining me now is author of international bestsellers, including The War on the West and The Strange Death of Europe, one of the finest thinkers of his generation, Douglas Murray. And Douglas, you are right now under attack. The left in the UK are trying to cancel you. They want you banned from TV appearances. They want you to stop writing for publications like The Spectator. But it hasn't stopped there. Led by the likes of Alastair Campbell, he's a supposed former journalist turned Tony Blair spokesperson, New Labour spokesperson. He and others are wanting you arrested and charged for offensive commentary, also known as telling the truth. What is going on in the UK, and do you fear that police are scrutinising your tweets and interviews and things you've written?
Well, all that caused this was the fact that I've used my eyes in recent decades, and I've also used my pen. And I have described what has happened to my country of birth, Great Britain, and the continent of Europe, and indeed the wider developed world, and the challenges that come through illegal and legal mass migration. That's not all migration, but illegal and legal mass migration. Interestingly enough, this interview that seems to have caused this breakdown from Alastair Campbell was one in which I simply said, what I describe in The Strange Death of Europe as happening is indeed what is now happening. And I said this, as many people have noted, not in a spirit of glee, but in one of deep lamentation. I never wanted to be proved right on this, and it gives me absolutely no joy to have been proven right that the importing of very large numbers of people, illegally and legally, from very different cultures into a society which totally fails to integrate them will lead to massive problems, including at some point a massive backlash. Now, it's interesting that Alistair Campbell should have been one of the ones to try to start this pile on. Of course, Alistair Campbell was part of the Labour government that in the late 90s and early 2000s massively ramped up illegal and legal migration into the UK. He's actually one of the architects of this problem, a problem which one of his colleagues at the time described as being deliberate. See, one of his colleagues said he came out of meetings about this issue with a very clear feeling that the Labour government of Tony Blair wanted this mass movement of people into the UK to, quote, rub the right's nose in diversity. Well, of course, all these things had unexpected consequences, but Alistair Campbell is one of the people responsible for them. I'm only responsible for pointing out the facts and the lamentable situation that he got our country into. There's a couple of other things very quickly, Rita. Of course, this man, Campbell, is best known for his lying dossier about WMD in Iraq, which helped bounce Britain and other countries into the Iraq war. So if he had any kind of sense of decency, he would have disappeared from public life a long time ago. He was also, of course, the person who hounded Dr. David Kelly to suicide. And that's one of the really interesting things about Alistair Campbell. He's an unbelievable bully and a hack. And one of the things about him, like most hacks and bullies of his kind, he thinks that he can hide behind, as he always does, the claim that he himself is very mentally fragile. One of the interesting things about that is he can chase people like David Kelly to suicide, but if you criticize Alistair Campbell for his frequent bursts of utter insanity, he says that you are using his mental health against him. He's a totally sick individual on every possible level. I make no apology for pointing out the terrible things that he and his friends did to my country.
Well, your greatest crime appears to be that you were right. You wrote about this years ago. You warned about what was going to happen in the strange death of Europe. You were right when you warned of the unrest that would come in books like The Madness of Crowds and The War Against the West. And as the great Thomas Sowell wrote, people will forgive you for being wrong, but they will never forgive you for being right. And what you talked about, that mass migration, we've got that discussion happening right here in Australia. We've had record numbers coming in legally, but if they're not assimilating, if they don't share your values, as we've seen in the UK, you're going to have these problems, and just trying to stomp it out with two-tier policing in the justice system, Douglas, isn't going to solve the underlying issue.
No, absolutely not. I mean, as I've said for many years, the mass movement of people, often who dislike the culture they're moving into intensely, and that always amazes me. I don't understand why people would move to societies that they dislike very much. But large numbers of people do, mainly just because they want to be in a system which can reward them, at least to some extent, financially, either through welfare or through the economy that works far better than the countries that they fled from. But if you bring people from very strong cultures with very strong ethnic identities and religious identities into countries of completely apologetic, kowtowed, self-shamed, and embarrassed about their past, as is the story that has been pushed on the people of Australia in recent years, as has been the story pushed on the people of Britain, Europe, and America in recent years, you don't have a hope of integrating people. So yes, all this stuff is absolutely predictable. It doesn't require a prophet. It just requires people with their eyes open and a willingness to tell the truth. And I hope that people do have their eyes open and continue to tell the truth, as I will. And I'm not going to be intimidated by any of these people who should have so much guilt on their consciences. I would be surprised if they dare to show their faces in public again.
Now, along with yourself, the other great enemy of the left right now appears to be Elon Musk, particularly amongst the political media activist class. Look at this deranged piece in The Guardian, where else, with the headline, "You know who else should be on trial for the UK's far-right riots? Elon Musk." That was the headline, and the piece goes on to call Musk one of the world's most prolific enemies of truth. This assault against free speech in the UK is really quite sinister, and I've got to say, effective. Of course, it's not going to silence
history. I assume he does. He's a relatively intelligent man. But he should know that America fought quite a significant war in order that American citizens would not, in fact, be under the writ of British law. And thank goodness Elon Musk isn't, and thank goodness he has the guts to continue, like a number of the rest of us, to say what is the truth. The interesting thing, by the way, about two things to say about Jonathan Freedland in this ridiculous piece. One is that Jonathan Freedland actually, after noticing the success of the Da Vinci Code and other sort of rather low boilerplate novels, started writing novels himself under a pseudonym. And one of them, published in 2017, is an extended wet dream about the idea of the assassination of President Trump. It's extremely open. That's the only skill of the book, such as it is that it's an excitable book for people who would have loved to see Donald Trump getting assassinated. On that principle, of course, perhaps the American authorities ought to ask for the extradition of Jonathan Freedland for writing a crappy genre novel under a pseudonym in which he dreams of the assassination of President Trump. Of course, it would be ridiculous to do so because nobody would read his book. But the other thing to be said about the people is that they just have this totalitarian, authoritarian instinct which they just can't get rid of. They think everything should always go their way. They think they should be the censors of the town square. And the reason why you see so much of the media running against Elon Musk at the moment is that they recognize that his platform, Twitter, is beating all of them, or most of them, in all of the stakes, the media absorption around the world. And that's very scary for some of these old media who can't keep up and don't have very many readers, like The Guardian. But, you know, it is a very important thing you mentioned there, Rita, that in actual fact, and Rowan Atkinson, no less, said this in a speech 11 years ago, it's perfectly possible, you see, that people like me, billionaires like Elon Musk, will be able to get through this era and will survive it, and I certainly plan to, and I'm sure and know that Musk does as well. But what about, as you say, the person who does not have the platform that I have, or the means that Elon Musk has? What about them when, as is happening all the time at the moment in the UK, police forces that have not solved one burglary, yes, you heard that right, not one burglary in recent years, are knocking on people's doors and arresting them for Facebook posts, for retweeting things. Sure, there are some people who've said some horrible things and disgraceful things in recent weeks, but oh my, the priorities of the British police. You know, they are really treading into very, very dangerous Orwellian waters. It turns out, and the rest of the public in Britain can't trust them to solve a burglary. Would I trust them to police my speech? No, I don't think so.
No. And the treatment you're receiving, the treatment Elon Musk is receiving, is what Donald Trump has been copying for some years now. And his 2-hour chat with Elon Musk had a lot of the media
docking permission
triggered.
Requested.
It did reach an enormous audience despite having technical issues at the
docking permission
start.
requested.
But
Docking
look at some of the
accepted.
media coverage we were treated to. This is from USA Today. Starts with this line: for a fascism-curious billionaire who loves cuddling up to right-wing loons. I mean, and it got progressively worse from there, Douglas. Trump's called the media the enemy of the people, and sadly it seems there are many in the industry who seem desperate to live up to that tag.
But I mean, these are just dying entities. I mean, USA Today is such a failing newspaper. It's as thin as a loo roll, and it's just an unbelievable rag now. Almost no information in it unless you want to follow the baseball, which lots of people do. But in terms of news, it's just the worst possible way to absorb news. But they just have an agenda, and they just show it more and more. They describe Elon Musk as a fascist. They describe the former president of the United States, maybe the next president, as just a right-wing loon. And you know, these people, you can write their headlines and their articles before the event occurs, and I'm sure some of these people do. I bet that guy decided to do that. And, you know, of course, they don't point out that it seems, whatever your criticisms of Donald Trump, he did this very lengthy conversation with Elon Musk. It's rather more than we've seen from Kamala Harris in recent weeks. But of course, they don't mention that. They don't note that, because it's just the backing chorus of the Democratic Party. That's all these distrust is, as I said to you before, Rita, we discussed this, it's about the fact that the public can see through these institutions. If a police force doesn't solve burglary, doesn't even go to the scene of a crime, but it does go for a Twitter X post, you know there's a problem of priority in the police force. Likewise in the media, when you see the coverage of things like CNN, it's not just that it's biased in its stance, not everything, by the way. Occasionally there's something on CNN that's relatively good, relatively impartial, but the thing is, but what they actually choose, what gives it away time and again is what they choose to focus on. They choose to focus on things that boost the narrative that they have said. You'll see Ukraine is Gaza, whether it's things domestically, whether it's just bluffing up their candidate to get her into office in November. And I was delighted to see that. I just can't watch Stephen Colbert most of the time. Almost nobody does. But I mean, you know, started off as a comedian, now he's just become one of these sermonizers, more sermonizers of the American left in what used to be late night comedy slots. But it was wonderful to see that his audience was wiser than he was and knew more than he did and laughed in the face of the idea that CNN simply
Left drive active.
It was the best moment of the whole interview and unintentionally funny. Douglas Murray, thank you so much for your time this evening.
great pleasure.
Every law passed before the 1965 Voting Rights Act should be presumptively unconstitutional. Right? Because before the 1965 Voting Rights Act, we were functionally an apartheid country. Not everybody who lived here could vote here. So why should I give a about some law that some old white man passed in the 1920s?
Of course, The View makes another appearance. What do you make of that call, Douglas? Laws written by old white men in the 1920s, well, they should just be disregarded.
I always like to, when you see performative idiots like that doing their thing, I always like to sort of try and just take it and see if it would work any other way around. Is there any country on earth that you would allow someone to say, these laws don't matter because they were written by black men? I can't think of it. It seems rather distasteful in my ears. It sounds rather demagogic. Someone like this clown thinks, and he only gets a career because this is basically his only shtick, is he thinks that if he's as racist as possible against white people, keeps sort of reminding everyone that he's black, that he somehow wins. But that isn't an argument. That's just racist demagoguery. And as I say, you know, find me a place where dismissing old black men, for instance, is regarded as being a good argument, a reasonable argument.
Left drive
Reasonable.
active.
This guy is as ridiculous as he looks, and I don't think we need to pay much heed to him. He's dismissed himself by the words he uses, and by the racist he loves to speak. has slowed that weapons program down. If the crazy Iranian mullahs in Tehran actually ever did get a weapon, the world would lie
and securing our success with every welcome partnership. This is not This is not about flags and footprints. This is about sustainable science and feeding forward the advance of the human spirit.
We're still alive, baby!
Because we are the pioneers, the star sailors, the thinkers. Because we stand on the shoulders of the giants to go farther than humanity has
Warp drive active. Drive active. Warp 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 drive active. Docking request accepted.
Honor to your family, loyalty to your corporation, duty to the state. These are the values that make you Caldari.
Pilots are reminded not to engage in unlicensed discovery schemes and that all items are sold as seen.
Pilots are reminded not to engage in unlicensed discovery schemes and all items are sold as seen.
Jita Trade Hub is not responsible for monetary loss due to local chat scammers.
The station honors all returning citizens from beyond the borders of our
Jita Trade Hub is not responsible for monetary loss due to local chat scammers.
Welcome to Jita Trading Hub. Please note there has been reports of scammers in the local area.
For Caldari pilots, there is only one honor. Freedom from the state, Kamakyoto. From
forecast. Pirate activity seems high in motion. Please fly safe as you exit the station.
From Lord to Reynolds to the charges in our railroads. Your industry is the beating heart that drives Kandari onwards.
Pilots are reminded not to engage in unless it is governed by the law.
The station honors all Indian citizens from the outlaws of our great state.
Please take extra care during our renovation works.
Your tastes are exquisite. Your entertainment should be too. Ashland, the choice for Kandari Cultural Hall Flags. Your tastes are exquisite. Your entertainment should be too. Ashland, the choice for Kandari
Today's forecast.
From
Warp drive active. active. Warp drive active. Permission requested. Docking request accepted. Warp drive active. Warp drive active. Docking permission requested. Docking request accepted.
Wherever you are, for Romeo or Seamus will help you unlock your own truth through guided meditation via live holocast.
Warp drive active. has run out of charges. Warp drive active. Docking permission requested. Docking request accepted.
Instructions on the latest Matari innovations without compromising the natural beauty of our colonies. Treasure the past, build for the future. Whether flying long haul, protecting the Republic's complexes, the Reaper Company gives you the boost you need to keep going around the clock.
Warp drive active. Warp drive active. drive active. Warp drive active. Warp drive active. Warp drive active. Docking permission requested. Docking request accepted. Warp drive active.
Episode 2 of The Last of Us Season 2 is quite controversial because the thing happens, the thing that made everybody mad. We start off with Abby, who is the character seeking revenge on Joel for blasting his way through the lives of the Fireflies. At this point in time, we have no idea who she lost. We're thinking maybe it's a boyfriend or something. She's here with her RPG group of characters that don't matter, and they realize during the daytime that the Wyoming settlement, oh snap, is actually pretty freaking huge.
That's what she said?
I like how Abby seems to care about this guy. I don't know if that's her brother or new boyfriend or what have you, but she seems to care specifically about him or gives him more care than the others.
Get up. You see?
It's all right. Now that we know what we're dealing with.
What in tarnation?
Sweet Jesus, what happened to her hair? I knew it looked funny at first, and this must mean this is the woman from Intergalactic Heretic Prophets game. Unless she was wearing a wig before, but then why would she be wearing a wig in the apocalypse? Also, wouldn't it make more sense if we're supposed to believe that this character shaved her head for her to keep her hair, if they're going through a cold area, or to keep her wig or whatever? Like, unless you have lice, what would be the reason to shave your head right now? I mean, it could also be, I don't know, that she's militia, and if she fights or scraps a lot, she doesn't want people pulling her hair. But every other woman here has hair except for the one biracial woman. Speaking of which, she looks very Asian. It's not a nitpick. I know it's a weird thing to say at the moment like this, but I love genetics. So when I see biracial people, I like to try and guess where their genetic ethnicity is. We know she has African ancestry. I can see that very clearly. But just looking at her face and her structure, she looks kind of East Asian to me, but I could be wrong. So anyway, this guy is going over the issues with the settlement, which is another bout of exposition, but at least it absolutely makes sense here. Him saying this, because this is better writing.
Main gates, no other ins or outs. Guard towers flanked with each exit. Mounted patrols, all heavily armed, overlapping routes.
These guys are trained.
Yeah, they've got some vets down there, for sure. We got 4 fucking power lines.
See, now that's cute, and now they realize that the settlement ain't no bitch. They have power lines. Where's the power coming from? And they mention that they've got dogs as well, probably Belgian Malinois, or German Shepherds or something. Not to mention the most important problem, as he points out, they don't know if Joel is in there or not. And even if he's in there, how the hell are they gonna find him without raising suspicion? Unless, of course, they come in like everybody else. Since, you know, the settlement has a habit of letting each and everybody inside the settlement that they find under the guise of just being regular survivors. The others are concerned, but it doesn't even feel like they're fully on board with this, except for the one cute guy in the bunch with the black hair, who's obviously gonna be a problem later.
Hey. Wow, you look like shit.
What, were you suffering from temporary blindness all this time? You're just now realizing that? Anyway, Jesse goes on and on about how Ellie apparently had quite the night last night, and then she just spills her guts about how she kissed Dina, thinking that's what he meant, and claiming that Dina was just being high. And I love how Jesse responds to this. His response is just really hilarious because it shows how much of a non-threat Ellie is. Imagine that, you date a guy looking like Jesse, and then the girl ends up going for this. Would you be threatened? It would have been worse if Dina had found some other guy that's like way bigger and way hotter than Jesse or smarter than Jesse. It would have been like, well, damn, now I feel like shit. Was I inadequate? Did I not satisfy her? Same way that girls would probably feel horrible if their guy left them for a much hotter girl. But you're a guy that looks like Jesse and your girlfriend leaves you for someone that looks like Ellie, you'd probably be like, whew, definitely her loss. I'm sure it also helps that Ellie is not another dude. I even knew this before my husband explained it, but he claimed that hypothetically, if me and him were to separate and I decided to go with another woman, he wouldn't feel bad. What would make him feel awful is if I got with a hulking dude with a gigantic dinosaur dick. That would kill him inside, especially if he thought there was a chance very shortly after that we could somehow rekindle our relationship. It's a biology thing. On the flip side, I know this is so off topic, but kind of on topic too. If my husband left me for another woman, I would feel extremely sad. But if he left me for another dude, there's no hope. Like, I'm sorry, there's just something about having a freaking pipe that just skews the balance. If he became gay, I just know that he'd be having like the best sex he ever had in his life, and there's no way I can like physically match that. Like, how do you come back from that? A girl can come back sort of from being bi-curious or whatever. Once a guy gets blasted and his insides get mixed with a freaking flesh baton and someone bakes his cake, I don't think there's any situation where he'll go back to a woman and be like, yep, I think I'm done testing those waters. Like, having your insides rearranged by a human spoon is just next level experience. Like, you cannot replicate that. And I've seen women that are like really attractive and I can say, oh, she looks really cute, like a cute dude. I would definitely. But then once the pants comes off and she's like turned on and she's like, hold on, let me strap it on. I'm sorry, it's, for me personally, it's not the real, like, it doesn't grow, pulse, and shrink. You know what? Okay, I don't know where I'm going with this, but the point of the matter is, that's the way I try to cope with Jesse. Being so completely okay with this. Either that or my guy over here is a player and getting his Jones on. Who cares about Dina, right? When he's probably got half the colony of bitches on his chopstick.
Seth, Joel, you kissed her.
Wow.
I didn't make seriously. Dina, I didn't mean anything. I was trying to make you jealous. Didn't mean anything. I didn't. I wouldn't do that. You're the worst.
I mean, it is. You admitted it. Dina was very high, and you took advantage of that, Ellie, didn't you? I wonder, if Ellie had been a dude, would everyone have just looked the other way if a guy took advantage of a woman being high in this situation? I mean, sure, Dina did throw herself at Ellie, but if that's how Ellie really felt, he kind of took advantage of her, and even told you she was high, and Jesse's the worst. I know they're joking, but still kind of fucked up. Like, you knew he was watching, too. Like, you didn't care about anybody but yourself. No self-control whatsoever. But whatever, people have needs and all that shit. Still pretty shitty to do to your friend. Even if I had a crush on the person my best friend dated for so long, you think I'd take the opportunity to kiss that person at the very party where I just spoke to that person? That's nasty work. Anyway, they do a little bit of exposition here, and honestly, they do that a lot in this season. I have no idea why they continue doing this. Even though the thing that Jesse does exposition for is kind of shown later on in this episode, it would have been a great surprise. This thing that he talks about would have been something I would have wanted to see. So I really don't understand why they're having Jesse here bleeding out everything beat for beat that happened when they could have shown us this.
What's everyone doing?
Council with the town. Last night, Kylie and Max found out
You see what I mean? Why didn't we actually get that whole scene? You know, the one that could have carried half the episode? Seriously? That would have been the perfect situation, to be honest, to throw Ellie into, especially with how smug she's been acting lately. Like, I could have forgiven the overconfident writing in episode 1. I really could have. Sorta. Maybe not. But they even started to deliver with the whole stalker bit, but then nothing after that. No follow through. It would have been great for them to throw Ellie into a situation that genuinely shook her. You know, remind her and us what it's like to be afraid so we can relate to her actually being afraid. Something that caught her off guard completely that she just can't stab or shoot her way out of. Completely unfamiliar territory that actually challenged her instead of just coasting on this snarky woman in the apocalypse. Imagine being a good writer. Now imagine doing the job you claim that you're good at and getting paid for. Such a wild concept. You see what I'm talking about with this dialogue? Why was this needed? You could have just shown us this. As a matter of fact, this could have been, actually now that I think about it, its own episode. But no, let's just have Thick Dick Jesse tell us the story of the episode they could have just shown us. That would have been way more exciting and interesting, to be honest, than the first trash of an episode that we got.
Yes, certainty masquerading as knowledge. Right, Ellie?
That's my dick. Did you forget you don't have one of those? But you did taste one recently, though, since you kissed Dina. Peen eating by proxy. Still getting that vitamin D without having a drink from the faucet. Let me stop. So anyway, Jesse tells Ellie that because she told a ghost story about the smartest infected, this spooked the whole town. But really, what did he expect her to do? Not say anything? So Ellie's like, well, you know what? I'm gonna go do my patrol with Joel, which is weird and seemingly comes from out of nowhere because from what we're told through implication, the last 5 years, this woman has made it very clear to everyone that she hates his guts, and she goes out of her way to not talk to him, like ever. But apparently now she's serious? Maybe she'd rather do it with Joel because she can't stand looking at the guy's face after she took advantage of his ex-girlfriend that he just broke up with, where they have an on and off relationship. But Joel already went with Dina. Super low IQ ability to just turn their brain off when something is literally happening in front of them that warrants their attention. Jesus, her character is nauseating. So Joel's brother Tommy is telling everyone the plan just in case they get breached by the infected because of that whole exposition thing. The scene that we were supposed to have, the one that Jesse told Ellie because of that having happened off screen. Tara, sorry, Maria, whatever, she's just Tara, whatever, calls Ellie for a conversation. And it's a pretty awkward situation because Ellie didn't know that this was coming. But I do like what Tara does here, because if they're going to be in the settlement, they're expected to hash things out. Except, why didn't Tara also demand that Ellie hash things out with Joel? Maybe it's because Joel and Ellie came into the settlement together, and this Cook guy is like one of her guys. I mean, but it's been 5 years though. Like, now they're part of the people. But if people have hatred towards each other in settlements, I would expect as a leader that you would sit them down and make them hash things out. I bet you that's what they do in the army, because that can literally put people's lives on the line if you're not in sync. If you have reckless people like Ellie who don't even want to talk to people they're supposed to be working with, or who think she's better than everyone, who can barely follow instructions to begin with. What if you don't settle something and then someone ends up holding a grudge and stabbing someone else they don't like, or not rescue them or something? Anyway, that's the resolution we get here from the dude who insulted Ellie and Dina the night before.
So we want. Thank you. So, that's what I said.
So, my side, obviously, in the future.
Happens to everyone. People get drunk and say awful shit they've never thought before.
I noticed Tara is Tommy's wife, and Tara is the leader of the settlement, and her husband is the leader with her. They don't even feel like husband and wife. Ellie doesn't respect him or listen to him, but she'll respect and listen to Tara. That being said, in relation to the scene, it is fucked up what the guy said, but Ellie is acting like she's a sanctimonious saint of not saying shit to hurt people that she shouldn't even be thinking. Like what she literally did to Joel the night before in response to Joel sticking up for her against this very guy that she doesn't like. And other things she said to people in the past as well. Everyone just conveniently forgets that. And the funny thing is that she ends up showing this dude more grace than she does Joel. Look, I get it. Joel's not perfect. Yada, 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 whatever. He's done a lot of things wrong. But why are we acting like he's the only person in this entire apocalypse who's ever done something wrong, who's killed people, who's had to kill probably innocent people to survive or feed their freaking kids? You think everybody in that settlement is innocent? Every single one of these people out here in the settlement have done some awful things to survive and protect their loved ones. And we're pretending as though these people were just literally handpicked from real current day society and placed in the settlement. Like they've never had to go through anything bad or make these horrible decisions. Really?
I shouldn't have said it. I shouldn't even thought it. I'm sorry. I made you do some sandwiches. They're nice. Yeah. Well, be safe out there.
Could just be me. But if this is the guy that's responsible for like cooking my food, even though he was an asshole, yes, I would take his apology. I would try my best to get on his good side, because he can fucking poison me. Like, I don't know. We can all say what we want. But if you're poisoned and dead, it's not like you can go back and teach him a lesson. He's in one of those occupations where, like, yeah, you still hash it out, but try not to keep it going as a grudge for too long. I mean, he apologized, and it sucks, but what more do you want from him? I would try to sit and talk with him. Clearly, he comes from another generation where they're a little bit ignorant and they just say what's on their mind, which can be a good thing because you want to know what people are thinking about, right? I would rather someone be honest with me if I live with them to my face about something that bothers them, even if it's bigoted, instead of smiling in my face and talking shit about me behind my back or having a grudge against me because of my lifestyle. Like, that's very important to me. If I make you that uncomfortable, I would like to know so I can stay away from it. Or maybe it can be an opportunity to open up conversation because clearly you have some misconceptions about who I am or what I do. And the thing is, he might not have to like it, and we can agree to disagree. It may bother him, but I can say, look, that's on you. I don't have a problem with certain things that you do as long as you don't push them on me. I will push them on you, but we can still work together. I forgive you, let's get past this, don't ever do that again. You know what I'm saying? But no, that's beneath Ellie, because people are beneath her, and in the apocalypse, who needs people, right? Even though you literally need people to help you survive. I would want to be the bigger person, so if for whatever reason me and this guy are ever pulled up together in a situation, he doesn't want to just leave me out to die. He would feel guilty doing so. Anyway, Tara is pleased. She looks at the guy, she's like, very good. That's it, good, son. And to be fair, he did seem to give a heartfelt apology. While Ellie and Jesse are out there, they get a signal that they should come back. Honestly, okay, here I go with my another female. I can't pull a dude that's like freaking 6 foot something or way taller than me. Why take the unnecessary risk? Joel and Dana, right? Them going out doesn't make sense either, because if something happens to Joel, she can't really have his back unless she's covering him with gunfire. But if he falls, it's going to be much harder for her to help him physically because of his weight. It's different if you're out there, like that's all you have available. Like when Ellie and Joel were going across the road together, they literally only had each other. But here they're in a settlement where you have other options. So why would you have super big dudes with super tiny women doing patrols with them? If someone needs to be pulled up, sure, the women can be helped, but the weight class is not the same. So you're not going to be able to help a dude. It might seem like that I'm harping on gender here, but yes, I am. I'm just looking at basic tactical logic. And it's not some, oh, well, you know, women can't do anything argument. I'm not saying that, but it's a practicality issue. Practicality, this word sounds weird. Practicality? I might be wrong, whatever. But it's a practicality issue, that's right, that applies to anyone, regardless of what gender you are. Even in real world professions that deal with dangerous or life-threatening situations, like firefighters, soldiers, you got EMTs, the expectation is that you can carry your partner out of danger if necessary. Firefighters and soldiers literally trained to drag or lift a fully geared adult from a burning building or who's unconscious on the floor because lives depend on it. It's not optional, it's protocol. That's why it's called a fireman's carry. The actual thing is actually called, I think it's either a dead man's carry, I've heard that too, but I think the official term is called a fireman's carry. Look at this clip right here. These are two dudes that are around the same size. As a matter of fact, the guy pulling up the other guy on the floor looks to be a bit bigger, and he is still struggling to freaking lift this dude. Like, so sorry to be nitpicking Nancy over here, but when The Last of Us Season 2 throws a smaller female like Ellie or Dina on patrol with a full-grown adult man and expects us to believe that this is smart pairing, it's not believable from a logistical or survivalist standpoint. What happens if one of the guys gets shot, right? What happens if Jesse breaks his leg, gets mauled, or, you know, if Ellie can't haul him out of there, they possibly both die. And she might be able to make it back to the settlement, but there's a reason why the two of them are together, because it ups the chances of survival. They can help each other. And now, not only is this guy going to die because she can't even carry him to safety or shelter, but she also lowers her own chances of survival because she doesn't have someone watching her back. If she could have carried him away to shelter, she could have given him a gun and he could still cover her or something, right? Or let's say that Jesse gets knocked out, right? His head hits on something and he's like, Ellie, I'm unconscious, help me. I mean, I can't talk, but you know. He's okay physically for the most part, but he's kind of out right now. It makes sense to have a partner who can at least carry him to safety immediately, so when he wakes up, you both are okay and you can watch each other's back and you get back to town fine. Not saying that's always the opportune outcome, but you up the chances of survival when you have someone strong enough to actually help someone else. And it's not like you have a bunch of people you could choose from. You have dudes you can pair with dudes and women you can pair with women. It makes no sense. Now, if Ellie were trained or equipped to carry someone her size or much larger, then show us that. But as it stands, the show is making decisions for drama points instead of realism. Might seem like a waste of time me harping on stuff like this, but for real, if anyone is out there trying to do shows and you want people to be immersed in your show, it helps to have people point out the discrepancies. I also appreciate that when people do that with my work, because the one thing I don't want is to publish my work and I come out looking stupid because the world that I want people to believe in makes no freaking sense where it should make sense. Anyway, they find a place to shelter, they keep the horses in a garage nearby, and this is a place that Jesse's been keeping a secret. Voila, a weed farm. And can you guess? We're going to get more exposition instead of showing.
How'd you know about this place? Warp drive active.
Patrol partner. And they showed it to me. Said he found it here earlier when he was on solo patrol. Swore me secrecy. Said Maria was not supportive of his farming.
Notice he said Maria, which is the person I call Tara, wouldn't be supportive of his farming. Her husband is never ever mentioned in any decision that has to do with the people or the general rule of the settlement. Even if Tara met her husband after she already acquired the settlement, you're married now, so you should share in that responsibility, right? She's supposed to be an extension of her husband. He's supposed to be an extension of you. I mean, I don't know. This is so weird. I don't know, dude. And it's not like her husband isn't capable. I just find it very awkward.
Okay.
Oh no.
Oh, great heavens!
So we discovered that Eugene used to be a Firefly a long time ago, and all now, I swear to God, I still don't remember who this man is. Are we just gonna continue using Jesse as the exposition dump dude? I mean, Eugene is important enough to mention more than once, but not important enough to show him and show what Joel might have done. Why does it feel like they tried to crunch everything into this season? Because it's probably gonna be the last season, maybe. Because otherwise, this whole thing could have been half a season. And I mean that when I said that. We could have had this as part of the storytelling for the show for a whole season. We're being told a lot of things. Eugene was a former Firefly, that Joel supposedly killed someone's husband. Oh, but apparently he had no choice but to do so. But somehow it's still bad because of the way he did it?
I hate you for it. Yes, I know you had no choice. I know that. I know I should forgive you. I've tried, and I can't because of how you did it.
That's Eugene we're talking about, by the way, in case anyone forgot. So yeah, we're told all of those things. That people are mad at Joel, and Joel is the reason why Ellie's mad at him, and even though she's always mad, even before he met her, that Jesse knows all these side characters and events that we, the audience, have no emotional investment in. Because we're not being shown any of it. It's crazy, because The Last of Us, at its root, is a story-driven, character-heavy world. Both the games and the show function as visual mediums, but since the show doesn't allow you to actively play as the characters like you do in the games, I'd argue that you need to work even harder to help the audience visualize what's going on with them. The power of the series has always come from emotional immersion. We feel things because we see the relationships, the tension, the grief, the fear, anxiety, all of that. When you skip the showing and just tell us what happened off screen, it completely wastes the story's potential and it robs the audience, us, of any payoff that we're supposed to get as a result of someone realizing what happened or seeing the reason someone acted the way that they're acting or why they're freaking mad. But yeah, and they continue doing exposition with Jesse once again, telling Ellie that Eugene used to be in Vietnam and he was tired of all the killing and blah blah blah, and again and again and again. This would have been the perfect opportunity to show us this. Why didn't they give us an episode of this? For crying out loud, Righteous Gemstones, which is supposed to be a comedy drama, does a better job at this by giving us backstory to these characters. They don't tell us jack. They show us everything. They'll have whole entire episodes that showcase backstories of certain characters that are going to be important to introduce later. If you're going to introduce a character that was either background noise or not an integral part of the story and expect us to care that they're dead or that their family members care that they're dead, give us a reason. And don't tell me that this isn't poor writing, because guess what? They took the most insignificant side characters, the two gay dudes, Bill and Frank, and they made an entire episode just for them. So later, when Ellie and Joel come upon their house and the message, I feel for them. They felt like real people and we fell in love with them as they fell in love with each other. Just ask me off the top of my head, the thing that sticks out to me most about the show. It's the episode with Bill and Frank. That's how memorable those characters were. And I think it was a beautiful match with how different their personalities were. And then they went out together. That was a gorgeous love story. And I was actually surprised and actually raved about it because Hollywood usually does this really sucky job with gay characters. And they built upon those two so well and it felt real, like these people were actual people in real life that were in a real relationship. When they had arguments and discussions, it felt real. When there was tension between them, it felt real.
Fuck you! Come on! Hey! Would you stop?
Do I ask for things? Ever? Why am I even saying that? This isn't for me. This is for us.
Who cares what they look like?
That's why I remember them out of this entire show. I don't even really remember Ellie. I don't remember Joel. Like, they don't stand out to me. The only reason Joel is the least bit memorable is because he's played by Oberyn Martell.
Say her name. Elia Martell. You killed her children. Elia Martell. Say her name!
Other than that, it's not like he's a standout character, and that's saying a lot because he's considered one of the most likable characters in the show, but he's actually quite bland, to be honest. He's basically reprising his role from The Mandalorian, and nothing's wrong with that because it's a good contrast between him and Ellie, but let's be honest, there really wasn't much to go there in terms of interest. Both he and Ellie are kind of forgettable. Also, what the stupid fake therapist woman had said, all of that would have been a great opportunity for us to see her life with her husband Eugene before they were infected, or if they had to deal with issues during the time they were together before he died, we would have seen how they were with each other so we could have a better impact on why the therapist was mad and why she felt the way she did towards Joel, outside of just you killed my husband because you absolutely had to. But no, that's asking too much.
Did you miss Pfeiffer? Yep. Just early on, though. Come back. back in 2010. He said he was tired of killing. I think he was in Vietnam. It was a raw deal. Joel having to put him down.
So you hear what he said there? Joel had to put him down. Like, put him to sleep. Again, they could have shown us this. In this episode, I'm sorry to spoil it, everyone already knows because they're watching this review, but Joel dies. So what's the point of us even having to do a backstory or flashback after this? People are like, all the freaking comments that I really think, I suspect they're fake. They're like, oh my god, this is so great. I can't wait till we see all the flashbacks with Joel and Ellie. Like, they're legit people leaving comments like that. And it's so ludicrous to the point where I believe they're fake. They gotta be some AI thing, experimental or something, because ain't no way they have something like this happen and you have a whole bunch of these freaking bot comments talking about how they're so excited to see flashbacks with Joel and Ellie. Are you serious? Like, does that sound like something a real person would have said? And why would they even do that? But they can't even give us a flashback of this man that everyone's talking about and wasting their breath on? Freaking Eugene, who I don't even know what he looks like?
Fucking shame. Guy makes it through the war. End up going on like that. What are you gonna do? Could be saved.
So what I gather from this, and also based on what some of the fans of the franchise had said to me on the last 2 videos that I did, apparently, as Jesse seems to imply, Eugene got bitten, which is why he had to get put down. Apparently that was not his story in the games, but in the story he got bitten, and just like everybody else had to deal with this colony, Joel apparently had to be was responsible for putting him down. Joel put him down before he could become completely infected, or he already was infected, but before he can infect anybody else. But yet the therapist bitch is upset because of the way he did it. What the hell else was he supposed to do? What the hell is wrong with this freaking show? And I don't want to hear one more person tell me, well, Tiara, if you played the games, you'd understand. It's not the writer's fault you didn't play the games, you stupid bitch. Oh my god, shut the fuck up. I didn't play the games, so what? Now what? Half the people watching the show didn't play the damn games, hence why a show is being made about it, so that the people of the franchise can reach a branch of audience that didn't play the fucking games. What is such a hard concept to grasp about that? Why are people so fucking dumb? Oh my god. Sorry, I think I'm PMSing hard because I have zero tolerance right now for nonsense. Anyway, we follow freaking G.I. Joe Abby, who ends up busting her ass, which is actually kind of funny. And tell me why following this character is more entertaining at the moment than following Ellie. Hell, maybe not with Abby, but I would watch a show with just Jesse already. And this isn't saying much. It's a very low bar that's been set here. Abby is way more likable than Ellie, and she's not even likable, to be honest. So take with that what you will. And you see the scene right here? This would have been the opportune time to surprise the audience because nobody would have seen this coming. We would have all been like, oh my god, what the hell is going on? Why are all the infected sprawled around like that? Okay, so the cold froze them? Whew, nothing to worry about then. You know, subvert the hell out of our expectations. You see? So when this starts happening, we would have all been like, oh, yes! But because they decided to tell us earlier that this was the case through exposition, that's what I'm gonna start calling Jesse, by the way, Mr. Exposition, or Mr. Tell Don't Show. I already knew as soon as she landed here that this was going to happen. But if we're following Abby at this point in time, I don't know, let us experience what she's experiencing. And clearly from her reaction, she didn't expect this to happen. Lord, the writers suck.
Old people burning, put your hands up, it's kind of messed up.
Anyway, we get Abby running for her life, and it looks like that meme with Johnny Depp running from those angry people. And this is actually kind of entertaining. From here on out, this episode actually delivers on action, making us feel as though the infected are scary, especially in the scene where she's behind the gate. See, that was really good. That was excellently done because I've never seen a concept like that done before in this specific way. Like, these people actually know how to do suspense, but I still hold to the point that they should have shown all of this with a group that Jesse mentioned, or just not have Jesse or any of those people know it all and have that be a a plot point later on to surprise the characters with. Maybe she experiences this, but the other people have no idea what's going on, or maybe have the patrol go out there with Jesse and Ellie, and then we see this actually happen to Jesse and Ellie, and have them in this very situation that they're showing us with this random person who we shouldn't really care about because we just met her. Yet I think I might be in the majority when I say I care more about her in this situation than I would Ellie. Because by then, we care about Jesse. We don't want to see anything happen to him, because like I said, nobody gives a damn about Ellie. That would have been a great way to introduce this kind of scene instead of just telling us this happened. That was such a wasted opportunity. And how ironic that Joel is the one who ends up saving her, which is so convenient for her, but Abby doesn't realize it's Joel until Dina says his name. Then Abby's like, you know what? My friends are up in that log house. Let's all go there. Meanwhile, Joel's brother is very worried about him, and I feel like this is another missed opportunity, because it would have been very interesting with them being brothers and having the relationship that we barely get to see anything of. But we did start off with these characters for Joel's brother to have been the one to go on patrol with him. I don't know, I just feel like that would have been better. I mean, from episode 1, season 1, we started off with Joel and his daughter, and his brother Tommy is literally the third character that's introduced that we're gonna be following alongside. Tommy was with him when the outbreak happened. For the most part, he was alongside him for most of it. So yes, it would have been more poetic and fitting for Joel's brother to have been alongside him. It would have been more impactful since apparently Joel's brother is like the only person who loves him now. Jesse and Ellie get the signal that nobody can reach Joel and Dina, and I can't even really say that Ellie cares that Joel is at risk because he's with Dina. So we don't know whether or not she's scared for Dina or for him. Now the people have activated the cordyceps, now the rest of the hive knows where the settlement is and breaks off and starts heading back there. What a fake horseback riding scene is this? Stuff gets really real when they start to see the horde heading straight for them, and this is honestly terrifying. Well done. We actually get to see the settlement in action with all the preparation they put together, and they're escorting the children and the women and the old. And my first thing is, hold up. Why is this guy going down there with them? There's nothing wrong with his feet. He's not old. Strange. Even if his wife is dead or something. Remember that whole tangent I went off on about women being a little bit more valuable in terms of breeding? Whatever. Oh, there goes Tara. So at a glance, this is a very good plan, except if it goes where I thought it's gonna go, it doesn't make sense unless you plan for the whole wall being burned down, because, correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like the majority of the wall around the settlement is made of wood, is it not? Also, and I'm sorry, but this pissed me off, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. You can have a decent scene with good action, but it's like the people who wrote this show know nothing about guns, because if you look at every single one of these guns, even without the sound, as I'm going to play here in a second, where's the recoil? Like, if you took away the special effects, where's the recoil? What? Sir, it looks ridiculous. None of these dudes look like they're firing a firearm. Look, they're just... What the frick is going on? I know some people might not think that this is a big deal, but attention to detail means pride in your work. But no gun in this entire episode is shown having recoil, which is extremely important if you want your scene to look realistic. Everyone was just holding it like they've never held a gun before, or rather they wrote the scene like that, right? They're just holding it, and then someone just adds in special effects. This is lazy. This is extremely lazy. If you're gonna go all out and make a good action scene like this, go all out, but that's like the bare minimum, bro. Like, you can't even tell that he fired the gun, aside from its mechanism and the special effects. This is just shameless, man. Shameless. Anyway, I don't know if they coated the wall, but tell me how, with these things having fuel on them and being lit on fire, and then pressing themselves up against the freaking wall, a wooden wall, that the wall wouldn't start burning as well. Seriously, look how many of them. And it's not just the fire that's burning, some of them still have the fluid on them, but regardless, it's wood. So the big cordyceps dude is used as a battering ram. I'm just wondering, was it impossible for anyone to aim towards that thing? They're successfully landing headshots on all of the infected, but yet the biggest one out of all of them, which is the biggest target, nobody can hit that thing. Tommy said that they were going to breach, and instead of him instructing everyone to aim toward that thing, take its legs out or its head, he just runs away and then prepares everyone inside for the thing to come in and all its friends. Did he not have enough time to see it, there are people watching from everywhere. They had a clear target, bro. Look. This is what I'm talking about with manufactured drama. I know all drama is manufactured, but it's not supposed to feel like that, because if seeing that thing indicates the characters that there's a guarantee they're gonna get breached, it's not rocket science. Try to take it out. Instruct the people on the inside to be ready in case there's a breach, yes, but instruct everyone on the wall, like they're already doing, to aim for that thing to make sure that doesn't happen by taking out the very thing that's gonna cause the breach. The hell? So anyway, it breaks in, not surprising. Everyone with their non-recoil guns starts shooting them.
That's so dumb.
We got the Ghostbusters over here with the flamethrowers that are so ineffective, it's unbelievable. I don't know, but aren't there flamethrowers that kind of spew the liquid out too, so whatever you throw the flame at, it gets coated in the liquid so it keeps burning? This clip I'm showing you right here looks like that's what that is. Otherwise, this is a waste of time. And look at them all running away. Can't really blame them, because what are these flamethrowers supposed to do? And I wouldn't call those men cowards. They probably understand, yeah, flamethrowers aren't going to do anything against this. Even if we can fry a few of them, there's no way. Plus, they're also breaking through the buildings and stuff. It's stupid. Also, is it wise for Tara to be out here? They have one son, her and her husband. I get that she's a big leader of the settlement or whatever, she is the leader, and she wants to help protect her baby and her people, but at the risk of both of you dying, like, then your child's gonna be an orphan. But it makes sense for Tara to stay down there with her kid, but anyway, she's on the roof, so she has to be safe, right? Except no, because those things can apparently climb, or either that or they're using the stairs to get up there pretty quick. They'll be fine. She's not gonna die. Also, I love this action scene because it's the best we've gotten, which is probably not saying much, but the other thing that annoys me is how much plot armor Joel's brother has. Bro is charging straight towards the infected horde. And he's able to stand there for quite a while, attracting attention to himself by firing at the big thing that he should have been firing at before it reached the wall, and all of the infected are just ignoring him and going around him as if he's one of them. Look, he's drawing its attention. Look at how many of them are just running past him. Look at that, dude in the jeans jacket to the right, just running past him. One's right there, running past him. This is horrible writing. Then he gets cornered, but no worry. He has so much plot armor, he'll be fine. He burns this thing over and over again, but instead of ducking and trying to get around it when he still has time, he's blowing the flamethrower at it. Which is look at that flamethrower, it looks so bad. This is the worst kind of flamethrower to have, but he backs himself purposely into a corner, which honestly I can't really see his kind of character doing. Is he gonna die?
Stay tuned for scenes from our next episode.
How? So this is where we see Tommy die, right? Because there's no way he's making it out alive unless his wife saves him, or the writers do.
Warping to Stargate. Warp drive active.
Are you serious, man? That was so horrible. You had all that space and all that time to get around this thing, and you just sat there and prayed. Are we really being serious? You didn't stick the flamethrower out and try to put some distance between you and the thing like every human instinctively would? It's like these people are not the same people from season 1. And so, the thing can be killed. Pretty sure if everyone had aimed for its freaking head, it wouldn't have breached the settlement, but no, we needed the drama. The settlement looks like it's not doing a good job, but Tara cuts through the horror. She's ignored as well, and she releases the hounds. Now, the writing here is stupid as well, but I forgive it because the dogs are okay. The dogs are, like, super good at fighting, and they're like dire wolves. I looked up if the dogs die, and no, the dogs do not die, so I don't even care. And question, how do the dogs know who to attack? Were they trained to attack infected? They must have gotten infected and trained the dogs to be aggressive towards them. But how would you do that in a controlled environment? And then half of those dogs are just ripping out the throats of the infected, which takes way more work. What if this was a real person? What if it's just killing some of the... What if it's killing some of the members of the colony? Anyway, just go with it. I'm okay because the puppies are okay, so I'll forgive that, no matter how ridiculous it is. It's not like it's an important plot point to the story anyway. But it's weird because apparently the tide turns when the dogs enter the scene, because after this, apparently, even though everyone was dying, somehow the infected... This looks like a regular person. Oh my god, that'd be so funny if the dogs are like, we doing this? who we killing? Who we killing? They don't even care. They're just like, just kill anyone. It doesn't matter. Look at this guy because look, the infected, look at its face. If it was really infected, it wouldn't look like this. This guy's probably like, what the fuck? We got infected and dogs we gotta worry about, bro. Anyway, let's get to the meat of the stew. This is where Joel realizes he's been got. Oh no, Joel, you're not going anywhere, buddy. And Joel being told through this long, unnecessary speech that he's about to die.
I saved your life.
What life?
Approaching Stargate.
Sister fired a shotgun with zero kickback whatsoever. At least she tried to make it look a little bit more like she had effort than the other people did. Also, why did Joel's whole body go back like this? It hits his leg, and it looks like wires pulled him up or something. Why are people still doing this in Hollywood? You realize that's not what happens. When someone is shot with a shotgun, whether it be buckshot or birdshot or whatever, people don't just fly off into the air. That doesn't happen. It's not freaking Django.
Cole, come on. Would you tell Miss Laura goodbye?
Do what now?
I said tell Miss Laura
Moving to Stargate.
goodbye.
Warp drive active.
Bye, Miss Laura.
Bro, dude shot her and Satan pulled her into the other room. Off topic, but kind of on topic as well. Who the fuck is this? What is that? Because it says Abby's the one who's speaking in the subtitles. Sorry. Are people juicing in the afterworld? Like, what is going on? Okay, now I get it. I thought they were just edits. I really legit thought they were edits and people were exaggerating with their edits, but this is legit in the game. Are we being serious? What are these men? What in the T-Rex? Anyway, they were so against a dude having this role that they had to put a girl that looked like a dude to play the role. Man, the freaking writers of this game and the show are crazy. Y'all whack. But yeah, the scene was freaking ridiculous. Honestly, I'd like to know what kind of guns these are that people are using in this universe.
Do you know how many you killed that day? Did you count as you went, or I guess maybe it just didn't matter? 18 soldiers. And one doctor.
Autopilot jumping.
This is all very sad, but also crazy when you think about the fact that these people were also ready to kill Ellie. Yes, they were doing it for the greater good, but they were still gonna kill a little girl for a chance that something might have worked. And now people are telling me that there were apparently other kids that they tried this on and they all passed away, so I don't know. Is this really a competition?
An unarmed doctor you shot in the head. Yeah. That was my dad.
Oh dear.
Oh, okay. Ooh, now I kind of understand. As a daughter, I completely get her rage. Because if it were my... I couldn't even... I don't even want to go there. I don't like thinking about it. But it's not like her dad was on the side of the road minding his own business, going la-di-da-di-da, getting sucked off in his car on the side of the road. He was getting ready to open up a little girl's head and kill her against her consent for a chance that they may get a cure. A chance to cure this fungal infection thing. So Ellie has essentially functioned like a guinea pig to these people, the Fireflies, and the doctor knew damn well that's what would have happened. So he's not completely innocent either. The needs of many outweigh the needs of a few and all that jazz. I get it, except you have to understand that Joel was operating at exactly the same level of protectiveness to save his adoptive daughter's life that this girl is now for her father, who's already dead, who was actually going to be the one to kill Joel's adoptive daughter. They did a good job of laying out the groundwork for us understanding her motive, but when you really sit with it for a minute, it's not enough to make you like her character. I'm just saying. Because from what I'm hearing, apparently it's gonna be hers and Ellie's story now, and I'm sorry for her, and I feel for her that she lost her daddy, but I don't care enough about this bitch to want to follow her story. Call me crazy. At this point, the way the show is going, I would not be surprised if Ellie went to go get revenge against this girl and then she and the girl end up dating or something. I swear to God, if one of you tells me that's exactly what happens in the games, I'm gonna fucking laugh because you cannot be serious.
I saw him. I was 19.
Funny how she's now playing the role of Oberyn Martell, the same role that Joel, the guy who plays him, was playing in Game of Thrones. And Joel's daughter that you're going to cut open on the table and take her life, she was only 14 at the time too, you know. During this entire time, why isn't Joel saying anything? Unless he wants to die. That was so infuriating because I'm waiting for him not to beg for his life, but to actually say something, you know? Sorry, I don't know, something. Maybe it's not in his nature or something. But maybe also because he's trying to protect Ellie in his last moments, he's like, if I try to defend myself, it's going to put them onto the fact that Ellie is immune, which doesn't matter because Abby should already know that. Her doctor was the person who was going to experiment on Ellie. So she already knows that, so it still makes no sense. Seriously? She spent this entire time doing a long speech like one of those Disney villains. They even had this cringy line about how handsome he is, but he's not though. Like, I'm not saying Pedro is ugly, but he's not really handsome. He looked okay as Oberyn Martell, but he's not really handsome. That's not how I would describe him, but whatever. You can say rugged, but handsome part, I don't get it. Yeah, no, I don't get it. He feels like one of those redneck uncles that you see cooking meth outside of the trailer and he's in his whiteies. Maybe that's just the way they made him up for this, but what is it when he took off the helmet in The Mandalorian? I was so underwhelmed. I was so underwhelmed. Like, I don't remember if I knew it was him playing The Mandalorian or not, but I feel like I didn't know or I blacked it out or something because when he took it off, I was like, ooh. His voice is really sexy. He has a great voice. And then when you see the face, when it's been covered for so long, you're like, damn. You know, it's like those face reveal videos with some YouTubers, and then they're like, I'm gonna show my face now. And it's like, oh shit. The fans are all excited, and they're like, go back to, no, don't ever do that again. Just let's pretend that never happened. Those kind of situations. That's kind of what it was like with The Mandalorian.
In your 60s now? You actually are pretty handsome. Congrats on that.
Approaching Stargate.
No, he's not. Girl, you're more handsome than he is. This dude is more handsome than Pedro is. And he looks like a freaking squirrel. To each his own, whatever. So she spends this entire time doing a long speech like one of those Disney villains.
No, it's funny. I have waited so...
Shut the fuck up and do it already.
Oh, that's what I was saying. Bitch, you came here to do a job. It's not like you have all the time in the world. Why are you talking so damn much? And for all that talking, I finally kind of realized she didn't even ask him why, but she probably already knows, which makes it worse. Like, oh, I know my father was about to kill your adoptive daughter. Who cares? Also, why is her father's life more important than Ellie's? At this point, it's because we all hate Ellie, you know? But you know what I mean. So she's like, you don't get to rush this, old man. You interrupted my speech. Now I gotta show off in front of my bald-headed friends. Then Ellie comes riding in, and I'm wondering, where's Jesse? Anyway, she finds out what's going on, and she's subdued easily. And before anything even happened, I was wiping my face in frustration because I was like, I swear to God if this bitch starts crying, because you had 5 whole years to make things right with him, and you chose not to do so. You chose, even though he was the one constantly coming to you, trying to reconcile with you over saving your freaking life. And now, when his life is in danger and he's about to die, now you're concerned? Now all of a sudden you care about him when you couldn't be bothered to shit on the ground that he walked on? I want you to notice the way that bald-headed woman over here is doing Ellie. She's much smaller than her, but yet her knee is pressed down in her upper back, right between the shoulder blades. And her arms are restrained. It's not important, just I don't know, that I point that out.
Joel, get up! No. Joel, fucking get up! Joel, get up. Joel, get up.
I want you to notice what a piece of shit Ellie is. Obviously, she can't help it, and she probably knows what's about to happen. But not once does she ever say, I'm sorry, or I forgive you, and then try to encourage him, or something. You know, this can possibly be his last moment. She's supposed to be smart enough to know that, or at least I don't know at this point, because they've written her character so stupid. And even if this woman doesn't kill him, he obviously is probably too injured to recover, or maybe not. Tell him you forgive him. Say something since you can't do anything. Give him one last moment of peace. But nope, we're waiting for that to happen, and it never does. He never gets that because apparently the writers hate him so much, and I have no idea why.
Please don't do this. Please don't. Please don't.
Why is Ellie crying? You had 5 years to make amends. And now that he's fucking dying on the floor, now you want to cry? What are you crying for? All this time he was hurting.
Approaching
His heart was
Stargate.
breaking because of how you treated him. And now you want to cry? Also, they put Dina to sleep, but Abby is so selfish she would rather someone else see what happened, like what she had to see, finding her father dead. She wants to do this to this person. She must know who Ellie is, right? But they don't put her to sleep because fuck Ellie.
Please don't! I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you!
Doesn't sound very convincing to me. I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you! Like, that doesn't sound very convincing. I would have been a fucking savage. I would have been screaming like freaking Spear from Primal. And this is probably, Ellie, exactly what Joel probably was feeling when he saved your life. Ellie, from the very people that were trying to kill you without your consent. Ellie, the ones that are standing in front of you right now as well. Sounds stupid saying that, but that's what happened. Imagine if this starts a whole domino effect of Ellie seeking revenge, and then someone else that she kills, her boyfriend or someone else, Abby's boyfriend or whoever, secretly wants to get revenge on Ellie, and then Ellie dies or whatever, and then Dina wants to get revenge. It's gonna be so stupid. Watch. Even though I give it that the action scenes were much better in this episode, a lot of it was still stupidly written. And killing off Joel when there's no longer any payoff to him reconciling with Ellie or anything like that, it honestly makes me wonder what is the point of the show and why did they take it this direction? Why did we even, as an audience, think that we would need to care about Ellie crying over Joel? She hated him, and now all of a sudden she's crying over him. It's very jarring and it makes no fucking sense. And yes, I get it, they're following the source material itself, but I can't for the life of me understand why they took it in that direction as well. It's the stupidest thing you could have done. There's a way to kill off main characters, but if your main characters are the draw of the show, then there's no show without them, and I'll get into why that is. By the way, I want you to notice here, this man shows one of his members of the colony that he was bitten. A lot of these people probably are. They take the gun and they pop him. No hesitation. Joel did the same thing. That's what the implication is. He had to put someone down just like that. Somehow he's evil, when I'm sure lots of people in the settlement had to do that. How many of these people had to do that this therapist was helping, and she had no problem helping them knowing they did that to someone else's loved one, but they had to and had no choice. Anyway, back to Joel being the heart of the franchise, and this being a bad idea that they killed him off, whether it was in the game or not. And I know it was in the game. You see, everyone thinks that the story has always been primarily about Ellie, but the more I look back on it after, looking back at the pieces from the first season, the more I realize that it was about Joel's emotional resurrection. A broken man who lost his daughter in one of the most traumatic ways imaginable, especially when help was right there. He learns over time to open up again, to love, to trust, and live again through Ellie. Joel's arc is what made the first story endearing. It's why people are making the comparison between this and The Mandalorian, aside from the fact that the same dude is playing or voicing both characters. Just like in The Mandalorian, the whole draw was the bond between the two and how they worked off each other. You got this very stoic, broken down guy who's all about business, and his ward is this kid that's very special and needs to be protected or delivered somewhere. You can cut and paste that on either The Last of Us or Mandalorian. In Joel's case, he's in charge of this girl who really doesn't take things very seriously, and it worked until they made his character a complete shell of its former self, and Joel's character was already a shell. Meanwhile, Ellie's character grows up into a batshit crazy bitch. That's right, I forgot the one male leader they had of a group that was supremely evil. Someone reminded me of it. Would you know, it's the dude, it's the one dude out of the entire show that's a leader. That's funny. But yeah, usually if you're gonna kill off a central character, there's a bunch of other central characters also carrying the show, or that the story is built around. You can have supporting characters and then the main characters, or the main characters that all work together, and then you kill off a supporting character, because the thing is, we as the audience are supposed to be seeing things or going on this adventure through the eyes of the main character. It's like killing off Peter Quill from Guardians of the Galaxy and then saying that we're gonna follow Drax's adventure or Gamora's adventure. And as much as I like both those characters, I'm sorry, not having Peter Quill in there doesn't make any sense. If you're gonna kill off a very central character or the actual main character of the story, you have to have a very good damn reason for that, and it has to enhance the story somehow. I can understand if they make Joel come back as a freaking clicker or something and he has to fight his nature of being one and override that for his love for Ellie. And as stupid as that sounds, that would have made for a more sensible story than what they chose to do here. I mean, they could have worked it in, you know, given how intelligent we see some of these things. You know, the stalker thing was very intelligent, but The Last of Us didn't do any of that. Instead, Joel is killed in the most anticlimactic, disrespectful, cruel, and shock for shock's sake kind of way. Barely into the story. Episode 2 of the second season, which is completely unnecessary. And it doesn't feel like a meaningful end for this character. It feels like the writers threw him under the bus just to shock the audience or because they have something against the character. They did this in the game to piss off the gamers, and then they harnessed a whole different audience that weren't gamers and decided to do the same thing to them. Like, seriously, to the writers.
Who hurt you?
Like, what did the audiences do to deserve this? Why are you doing this to yourself? Because you must know this is only going to end in ruin for you and this show. And like I said before, Ellie is not enough to carry this franchise. She was a good character because she was there to balance out Joel. She only functioned as a plot device. I'm sorry. It was an interesting plot device, but she doesn't work without Joel. She became who she is because of Joel's love and protection and the dynamic between them. Forcing the story to become all about Ellie's rage and Abby's redemption or whatever the hell is they're gonna try to do, it completely flips the emotional center for the series. And now you want us to emotionally invest into a character who murdered the protagonist that everybody loves, who was the focal point of the story. That's like watching someone burn down your house and then being told, okay, now go live with them and care about their problems. Sorry, no. Why in the hell should we care about Abby's problems when she killed Joel? Because she completely disregarded his and Ellie's problems. This whole narrative that they took with killing him was just, in my opinion, very cheap and lazy. And let's call it what it is. Provocation. Can't just gut the narrative core and expect the rest of the story to hold itself up. Joel was the engine of a car. I swear it's the last metaphor. But Joel is like the engine of the car, and the showrunners basically yanked out the engine and expected the car to keep driving because they slapped new paint on the doors or something. And the only way that that happens is if the car is already going downhill to begin with, and if that's the case, you already know it's going to end in a trash heap at the bottom of that hill. So then what's the point? And if the only way you can get the car to drive is by pushing it downhill without having the engine, then you're a freaking idiot. And you're lazy instead of just fixing it. Let's see if the car flies once it drives off the edge of the cliff, though. We could be wrong, but I can't be the only one who has very little interest in the show after Joel has bit the dust, because I am not staying around for this.
But I will say, I don't know if you can tell by looking at me, I do have family members with Down syndrome. It almost got me. I got you, but it makes me...
Approaching Stargate. Autopilot jumping.
Tonight now, a group of men are caught on camera unloading a fire extinguisher on a traffic agent. The NYPD tells CBS 2 this video is evidence of assault and reckless endangerment. We're told the agent...
So the police really do have their hands full, not just keeping us safe from violent crime, but now they too are under attack from thugs who feel emboldened by our no-consequences justice system. Yet activists insist on blaming police for the existence of crime, which is why there's now an effort to make the city safer by getting rid of cops if they don't all quit before that happens.
NYPD cops are leaving the department at record rates. It comes at a time when the city says major crime overall is down.
But we found that that is not the case. After spraying a fire extinguisher at an NYPD car, you see the suspect speeding away.
It's not only disrespectful, but it is an attack on the foundation of our city.
We're here at an undisclosed location in Brooklyn to get an exclusive look at the hard work of an elite unit of NYPD detectives. They're going after the toughest criminals in New York City.
2,931 officers either quit or retired last year. The data also shows the NYPD is at its lowest headcount since 1990.
This mass exodus the result of an aging police force, but also the result of certain laws like bail reform, mixed with what some officers perceive to be an anti-police climate.
We're about to go out with one of the units right now, and they say that these suspects are so dangerous and have so many guns, me and my crew need to put on these bulletproof vests.
Despite assurances from the mayor to hold the individuals accountable, the Union for the NYPD tells CBS 2, quote, criminals are emboldened to attack because they believe they won't be held accountable. Our system has sent a dangerous message.
So over here we've got National Guard troops, and then over here we've got New York's finest, and all this extra security. It's doing a lot. In fact, it's doing so much that a local writers group now wants less police in the subway, not more. But what nobody's talking about is that not only could this have the unintended consequence of causing crime to go up if you remove the police from the train, this defund the police attitude still persists among activist groups and lawmakers who are doing everything in their power to make New York's finest fight crime with one arm tied behind their backs, at a time when mass protests spring up at least once a week, when moped gangs roam our streets and parks stealing wallets and cell phones, and when there's so much shoplifting in our stores that Macy's uses braided cable with tripwire alarms to keep North Face jackets and handbags from wandering off and getting sold on Amazon. But if you think gangs of criminals taking over our streets and our stores wasn't bad enough, things are about to get even worse for the city. Because even if activists can't defund the police any more than they already have, they can still wage war against them with constant investigations, even going so far as to persecute officers for tweets. And this reveals the real reason crime is out of control here in New York. The police, they're not allowed to succeed. Every time they arrest someone, that person gets released. If they find a weapon, charges get dropped. And if the work of activists, judges, and officials wasn't bad enough, the NYPD just ended a crime wave of epic proportions. But if activists have their way, this area of the city could revert to the hellhole it was just a couple of weeks ago. In the New York City subway, which until recently was one of the most dangerous parts of the city, and it was experiencing 6 felonies a day, even after the National Guard rolled in. Yet although the NYPD deserves credit for bringing things under control with a massive push towards busting fare evaders and arresting criminals, activists are upset that these efforts have been successful, and they want to try to police the subway without police. Despite the overwhelming evidence that when cops are allowed to be cops, things work out pretty well for those of us who aren't criminals.
Now, this is tricky every time we talk about it, so let's take a look at the data. Overall crime was down 5%. The biggest change, a nearly 20% decrease, and that's substantial, in robberies. Now, felony assault is also down by about 8%. Grand larceny is the only crime on the rise, and that's up about 4%. I should have looked at the definition of grand larceny so we could all understand what that is.
So according to the internet, grand larceny here is theft of personal property valued at over $1,000, like an iPhone or a laptop. But in spite of the fact that crime here is down from where it was at the start of the year, there are still people who disagree with the presence of police in the system. And for some reason, the activists who are now complaining about increased police weren't saying anything when crime was through the roof. Yet now, proponents of policing say we're being hit with all the same arguments about how locking up criminals and stopping crime makes society worse for some reason. And they say that activists in this city are so busy looking for the root causes of crime that if a criminal's in the way, they just look over them and try to find the root cause. Because there's a pervasive belief that criminals are not responsible for their actions, therefore punishing them is completely unfair. Instead, it's believed that their actions are part of a larger problem. And because of this belief, we're on a wild goose chase for causes of crime that invariably leads back to the police because it's not allowed to lead back to the criminals.
One of the big focuses of the crime crackdown, targeting fare evaders, and police arrested more than 3,300 people for fare evasion, up by 88% compared to last year. Governor Hochul crediting adding more law enforcement into the subway system.
We saw a spike in subway crime in January. We met with the mayor and his team. He sent in more NYPD. I said I can bring in resources, transit police.
So here we have the mayor and the governor teaming up in a way that makes all of us a lot safer when we're down here. By adding police, by adding the army, employing a physical presence, which is apparently too offensive for some elements of our society that needs the police just as much as everybody who agrees with them being here. And you know something, to be quite honest with you, I feel better seeing the uniformed authority figures who are armed in the subway. It makes me think that if something were to go wrong, even though they're not pervasive throughout the entire system, that there would be someone who could respond in the event of an emergency. On top of that, once the police started stepping up their efforts to bust fare evaders, crime in the subway started stabilizing. Many of the people they caught had warrants out for their arrest, happened to be bringing weapons into the subway, and the simple act of stopping somebody for committing a minor crime led to people getting caught on their way to potentially doing something much more serious. But as you're about to see, crime is a problem not just in the subway, but all over town, and the police are so short-staffed, they're basically running around trying to play whack-a-mole, catching up to the crime as it happens over here, and then, oh, it's over here, now we've got to go there. And some of these incidents are so frightening, it makes you wonder how activists can side with the criminals. Yet they are, for some reason. So while the opponents of the NYPD are out looking for the root causes of crime, the police themselves, they're looking for actual crime in buildings like this one right here.
They've been terrorizing the streets of Brooklyn for years with guns and violence.
But tonight, more than a dozen alleged gang members are under arrest.
Countless hours by the Gun Violence Suppression Unit went into the investigation that led to the 85-count indictment and arrests of 15 alleged members of the Drench subset of the Nine Trey Bloods, also known as H.
All right, you know, our streets are dangerous, our subways are dangerous, and this type of thing, gangs living in apartments, wreaking havoc everywhere, it's totally unacceptable. Yes, this is a big city with a lot of people, but if we let the police do their jobs, if we help them, God forbid, then we won't have to have criminals as neighbors who terrorize us in order to make a living for themselves. And look at this, the people who got arrested, they weren't nobodies, and you had 18 different people arrested on some of the worst charges imaginable. And this is what the police are designed to do, find dangerous criminals in the apartments they're hiding in and lock them up. Everybody should be applauding this. Yet for some reason, various elements of our society, various activist groups, some of our leaders, they look at these criminals and they see sad, lost souls who are really well-meaning, and they just had a momentary lapse of judgment 5 or 6 years ago when they joined that gang and remained in it the entire time.
We're about to go out with one of the units right now, and they say that these suspects are so dangerous and have so many guns. Me and my crew need to put on these bulletproof vests.
Now look, I understand the police are not perfect. They make mistakes, but as a law-abiding citizen, you've got to pay somebody to put on a bulletproof vest and go out there and stop the bad guys, because if that doesn't happen, the bad guys are going to be coming for the rest of us, and we're not going to be able to live our lives, work, provide for our families. We need police. And yes, we do need to hold them accountable, and they should be wearing body cameras. But at the end of the day, we need a police force that isn't just allowed to stop criminals and arrest them. We need to make sure the officers in that police force are well protected and have the support of society, which they will have with proper oversight and accountability while they protect our rights and do their jobs. And the breakdown happens when those two things aren't happening at the exact same time. And this is part of the reason why civil rights groups bring cases against the NYPD for tactics that they claim are way too harsh. But as you're about to see, sometimes when these reforms happen, they have an effect that nobody anticipates, and they set the city up for disaster in the future, which we're experiencing right now.
Video from earlier shows the large crowd of protesters trying to get inside the museum as workers locked the entrances. No word on how many arrests so far. Right now, there are no reports of serious injuries. We'll stay on top of this.
You know, I don't think peaceful protesters cause this much violence anywhere else in the entire country. Which proves the police aren't just fighting crime underground, in apartments. Literally any part of the city, any public space could quickly turn into a demonstration zone. Now, of course, the situation in Gaza is a humanitarian crisis of epic proportions. Yes, it deserves attention, but when you realize that half the protesters recently arrested across college campuses weren't even students at those campuses, it reveals that some elements of society are taking something that has a legitimate grievance and using it for anarchy. These movements are being co-opted by people who blend in with the regular protesters. Now, put yourself in the shoes of a police officer. Let's say you've seen the city and various leaders attack your department for using the tactics they taught you when you were in the police academy. How depressing must it be to watch crime get worse, knowing your hands are tied halfway behind your back, especially while you're now being told you can't do things that you know keep you safe and stop crime. And critics say this level of emotional warfare against our police has taken a new and frightening turn for the worst. And not only is it wasting valuable city resources, it is making us less safe at the exact same time, and they say it is 100% on purpose.
City Council holding a hearing today looking into NYPD spending.
But much of the questioning focused on some controversial social media posts from members of the department's top brass.
Fox News' Lynn Schmidt joins live from the newsroom. Linda.
So, to set the stage here, a recent budget meeting turned into a fight over what certain officers were posting on the internet, of all things. As if our society can't fall any further away from the matters that are most pressing. Here we are worried about what someone said online. But in defense, our leaders point out, rightly so, that these posts were made on an official account, and it shouldn't look like the official stance of the NYPD is political in any way. But that's where things get complicated. The police were responding to criticism of their department by a politician who they think has an anti-police stance. The accusations are that this was a misuse of power, but is that true?
Chief Shell's post reacted to a post from Queens City Council
Columbia University, a colossal disgrace and a horrifying affront to democracy.
Did you instruct the chief to delete the post?
Autopilot jumping.
Speaker Adams, this is exactly what DOI is looking at.
Commissioner, did you instruct the...
So here we have the whole Columbia University situation that happened just a couple of weeks ago. That campus was being totally destroyed, and the campus administrators, they couldn't handle what was going on. They tried negotiating with the student protesters. They couldn't get anywhere with them. And after about a week, they begged the police to come in and save their school, which they did, but it didn't happen without any criticism, because apparently the way the police went about removing protesters wasn't gentle enough for their critics. But before we get into what the chief of patrol actually said, you've got to understand these protests, this is still happening at various schools. This is a citywide movement that has not stopped. And critics of the politicians involved in this say that their comments embolden those who are a dangerous element to our society.
Chief Schell responded, "I started to read this garbage and quickly realized this is coming from a person who hates our city." He then goes on to say, "Remember everyone, if you want change, seek the change you want by getting involved. Then you know what to do."
That seems to be conveying...
So what you have here is a situation where a politician had political criticisms of the NYPD, and they responded with a political criticism of their own. Should a political opinion have come from a government account that is for the police? Maybe not. But would that have mattered? Would there have been any less outrage or any less of a call for an investigation? Isn't the real issue here whether or not it's okay to destroy property that's not yours and to ruin the lives of other students that have paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to attend that university and didn't end up getting a graduation? Not to mention possibly injuring students, teachers, and the police themselves? And are we really to expect that officers remain completely opinionless?
Chief Schell is accused of violating city law by using city resources, an official NYPD X account, for political purposes to suggest voters vote Caban out of office.
Do you feel that post was appropriate?
Again,
all right, I understand why our elected officials are circling the wagons. They're protecting each other. I understand that it makes sense, and they don't like being attacked by a department that is supposed to be politically agnostic. But watching this whole thing transpire makes it look like the chief would be in trouble no matter how he said what he said. Just thinking what he thought was the sin that he had committed. And while at the same time, we certainly don't want people being intimidated by the police via online threats or something perceived as an online threat, we also don't want the protesters to be emboldened by language from political leaders that makes it sound like their cause of destroying their own property and putting lives at risk is okay. But here's where things get a little bit tricky. Let's say you're the fire department. Are you allowed to have a political disagreement with somebody who encourages the starting of more fires? And if you're a police officer, are you allowed to have a political disagreement with somebody whose platform is to encourage the type of crime you're supposed to be stopping? That's the real question here. And is it possible to be politically neutral when those who are criticizing you seem to want more of the thing your department exists to stand against? While our elected officials are right to want to hold the police accountable, critics say that this looks like a witch hunt, which is completely unjustified. After all, this is just a tweet on social media in response to another tweet. How many public hearings do we really need to have over something like this when the city is full of crime, and when right now criminals could be plotting something that is much worse than what somebody happened to say at the other end of their keyboard?
The New York Civil Liberties Union weighing in on the controversy.
The NYPD has the responsibility to enforce the law, not to take sides in political disagreements.
Governor Hochul also reacting today.
This is a local policing issue for the mayor of New York.
Okay, now as I said...
You know, this might sound absolutely ridiculous, but one of the best things to happen to the police force is Mayor Adams. Is he the perfect mayor? No, but he is a 22-year-plus veteran of the NYPD. And compared to his progressive predecessor, Mayor Bill de Blasio, the police have things going a little bit better for them. And the governor is also doing a great job of staying out of local issues. And when the police were attacked by asylum seekers in Times Square, she was vehemently against the fact that the DA did not press stronger charges. And when you consider that laws like bail reform, which decriminalized most of the offenses that get repeated over and over again and are just overrunning our city with trained criminals who've got prior experience committing crime, those weren't passed under Mayor Adams or Governor Hochul, which means that to an extent, the lawless environment that we're currently experiencing is the result of their predecessors. And observers say just as it took time for the pendulum to swing left, so to speak, it's going to take time for it to swing back the other direction and for there to be any repeal or adjustment of laws that may now be causing problems for everybody. And over the last year, there has been talk of repeal of certain aspects of bail reform, of repeal of certain sanctuary city policies that limit the NYPD's NYPD's ability to communicate with ICE and get dangerous criminals off the street when the federal government is looking for them. Could these things happen in the near future, or is New York City already too far gone based on how it's being run for those who are in favor of law and order to see any meaningful changes that make the general public safer? Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.
Hope and skepticism from transit riders at the busy Fulton Street subway hub, where this new weapons detection system is up and running. The AI-powered scanner can reveal the presence of a weapon and exactly where it's located.
So believe it or not, crime in the subway has temporarily subsided, and it's not because of the new weapons detectors they're now testing. Instead, it's because the military has been down here since March, but they can't occupy the subway forever. And when they leave and all that's left in the subway are a few body scanners scattered throughout, critics say the criminals will come back with a vengeance.
Tonight we're hearing from subway riders after the city began testing a controversial weapons detection system.
It's not going to work. They putting it here because this is the main train station, but there's one around the corner.
New details on a story we've been following. Police have charged Randall Contreras. According to the DA, he asked for money and attempted to rob the woman before attacking her.
This comes as the MTA talks about new crime statistics in the transit system. They say crime is headed in the right direction, but that is of no solace for the people who fall victim to this stuff.
This week alone, transit crime is down 44.4%.
For months now, New York City and the state have been working alongside law enforcement to try and keep the millions of people who use public transit safe.
It's really messed up. This is New York City. This train system is very dangerous. You gotta be on your P's and Q's.
But how accurate is it? I walked through with no problem, but Marsha Kramer walked through and set off the alarm. Her iPad mistaken for a weapon, which is why officers require people to take off bags so they can search them separately.
So crime may be down underground, but above ground, it's rising. And what nobody's talking about is that the city has a lot riding on these weapon detectors because there are not enough police to keep us safe up here on the streets and down there underground at the exact same time. Because alarming as New York City's subway crime wave was at the beginning of this year, many observers predicted that it wouldn't be long before the crooks down there would feel the presence of the military and extra police and then go commit crime somewhere else. Which is exactly what's happening at street level. Because the 1,000 officer surge that's been taking place in the subway for months, checking bags and arresting fare beaters, it's worked. But while it's been working, multiple crime waves have sprouted up on the street, like increased shoplifting at our stores and businesses, a wave of moped-riding gangsters robbing diners as they eat bagels in Soho, plus our laundromats are under attack from thieves who work the night shift. But with residents upset that they can no longer safely walk down our streets, the city's got to do something, as long as it doesn't involve hiring more police, which the mayor is in favor of, or locking up our criminals, which the city council is not in favor of, because then somebody might spend their birthday in jail. And that brings us to the real reason we now have AI-enabled weapon detectors being randomly tested throughout the subway system. Because if they work, the subway will finally become a progressive paradise where the bad guys steer clear of the law-abiding of their own volition. Or maybe just walk around the detectors because they're not going to be everywhere at once. But that's not the only problem. Local activists now want to sue the city, saying these scanners will violate people's constitutional rights. Plus, the technology is not 100% perfect, which critics say could lead to false alarms that put commuters and law enforcement in danger. But either way, the city is between a rock and a hard place because crime is everywhere, the police aren't, which means these controversial weapon detectors, even if they don't work, they still might be here to stay. So here we are at the Fulton Street subway station. This is where the weapon detectors were unveiled about a week ago and tested and then packed up and shipped off somewhere else. I asked the troops upstairs where they were located and they said they were not exactly sure where the city was putting them because it is now a secret. It's a pilot program. They want to test them out and see how they work. But when they tested them in this very large, very busy transit hub, people's reactions to how well they thought the machines were doing were rather mixed.
This is a 30-day pilot program, a test for now. And of course, not everyone is thrilled about this. It's not going to work. Hope and skepticism from transit riders.
Right, so it looks like the people that have to walk through these things and use them are not exactly sure they're gonna make us safer. Granted, there are some people who think they're gonna make a massive difference. I am one of those people. I hope they work. And even though only time will tell if these machines are able to earn the trust of New Yorkers, there are some serious shortcomings with them, which is why when some people see them in action, they just scoff at them. So the way that these AI-powered body scanners work is they look at your bag, and wherever it thinks that there's a threat, it pinpoints, and then the police will search that part of the bag only to see what the machine found. These things are not exactly new. They're at Disney World, they're at football stadiums, but they will be new here in the subway once they roll them out. But what's interesting is they specifically chose the station we're standing in to test these things out. Likely to prove a point not only about security, but to also help them win a lawsuit related to security down here.
They put it here because this is the main train station where everybody gets off going to Wall Street. But there's one around the corner.
Still in one of the busiest transit hubs in the system, the mayor says this is the perfect spot to scan for knives and guns.
At the beginning of my administration.
So right away, one commuter points out that if you don't want to walk through the scanners, you're not going to have to. You can just go around. Which is the problem with all subway security, like these metal hot-proof barriers right here. If those aren't going to work for you and you want to jump, well, then you can just find another station that doesn't have these. But there's a reason they chose this station to do the unveiling. First of all, it's fairly modern, and that's because this is a billion-dollar facility that was built 10 years ago. It's in the basement of the Fulton Center. It's got a whole bunch of subway lines that connect you virtually anywhere in town, but there was a major issue with this place at the beginning of the year. Crime here was so bad, and the city was so unable to curtail the issues that businesses were having here, like theft, that the mall tenant, Westfield, they broke their lease after most of the stores here ended up shutting down because they just could not survive. And now the city's in court with them, trying to sue them to stay for the next 10 years like they're supposed to. And look at the problems they were having here. Thieves were stealing from the cash registers of many of these little shops. And perhaps the reason that these weapon detectors will first be installed at high-profile stations like this one is so that the city can say that, hey, look, we have cleaned these places up, we're keeping them safe. But the fact that some of the crime being committed here doesn't involve a weapon brings up another issue. How are they going to stop people from using their hands to do things that are wrong? And when these things think they've found a weapon in a backpack, how accurate are they?
I walked through with no problem, but Marsha Kramer walked through and set off the alarm. Her iPad mistaken for a weapon, which is why officers require people to take off bags so they can search them separately.
This is
Okay, so two things are obvious right away. One, the machines have some serious tweaks that have to get worked out. Also, they just unveiled them for the press once at one station to say that they're coming, and then they've packed them. I can't find them anywhere. Now, the way these scanners are supposed to work is that they are embedded with profiles of various objects that they are looking for. And when they find one of those things, they go off. When they don't find one of those things, they do not go off. But no technology is perfect, and one of the things people are worried about is what happens if it goes off and freaks everyone out and escalates things with a law enforcement officer to a dangerous level. And nobody wants to see the subway turn into the TSA like at an airport where it takes forever to walk through. You gotta take off your stuff, you gotta take off your shoes. We don't want that, especially when it costs $2 to ride this thing. But there's another problem with these scanners that look inside your personal belongings without opening them, and it's got people much more alarmed than the idea of a false positive or a few wasted minutes on your way to work.
But the Legal Aid Society and the New York Civil Liberties Union are threatening to sue, writing, subjecting New Yorkers to suspicionless searches by the police every time they need to ride the subway is a violation of their Fourth Amendment.
So the real issue here that has activists concerned is that these devices, they could be violating everyone's privacy in a way that is actually illegal. Is that the case? We'll have to find out. They're suing to try and stop them, even though they were only set up at one station and now they're gone. But what's interesting about this is the same activists, they were pretty upset that the NYPD started doing bag checks, yet those very same bag checks have worked. And maybe folks who aren't in favor of random searches have just decided that, hey, this is a necessary part of life, and it is effective, and it is getting weapons off the streets. Will they be convinced if the weapon detectors are rolled out and they start working? No one knows yet. But there's actually another reason the city needs these weapon detectors. And the hope is that if these things work, they might convince people to come back and start riding the subway again. Because right now, riders don't think that the people running the subway have their security or their best interest in mind. And these expensive devices might just help that to start happening. Because if people don't believe this place is safe, they're not going to use it. And they aren't. So here we have a police car, and right over here we have the entrance to another subway station. And yes, crime is a big reason why people don't want to use the subway. But the other problem is that even when people try to use it, something else stops them, which has some people suggesting the real criminals are those in the agency that runs the subway.
Frustrated commuters, yes. They were stuck down on sweltering platforms after a flurry of delays and cancellations. Now, MTA Chair and CEO Janno Lieber said that was all the result of a transformer failure. In other words, aging infrastructure that could have popped.
So this report focuses on a series of delays that were caused by a regular equipment malfunction happening down here in our aging subway, which, by the way, costs $20 billion a year to run and looks as inviting as a haunted house. Now, the delay in question happened when a transformer broke down, shutting off power to several stations in the subway, stranding people throughout the system when temperatures were 90 degrees. But it's not the temperature down here that's the problem. We haven't had AC in the subway ever. The real problem is that the system is not maintained in a manner that makes it reliable. I think we could all deal with old and ugly as long as we had reliable, safe service, but we don't have that. Instead, we have beautiful murals like this one, which is probably full of symbolism and unappreciated by everybody who walks by. But when you see stuff like this, you'll wonder where the billions of dollars that are supposed to go towards repairs are actually going.
This is what takes place when you underinvest in a essential infrastructure system that is 100 years old and getting older all the time.
MTA Chair.
Now, look, I realize that the subway doesn't have any money, but this idea that we are somehow under-investing in it when this is what our investment is getting us, these old lights and this old sign and this chip and paint right here, you don't keep investing in something that's a bad investment, do you? In what world do investors pour money into something, get zero results, and then keep doing it? That's just not how investments work. On top of that, the trains themselves are delayed 15 to 20% of the time, depending on which line it is that you're riding on. And when the subway's purpose is to get people from A to B and it doesn't do that, how do you warrant further investment? Or at least, how do you convince the general public that more money is what this place needs when it's already got so much?
Although temperatures near triple digits, Lieber said the scorching heat wasn't to blame.
This is not heat related. A 60-year-old transformer failed. That is a major piece of equipment that is 30 years past its useful life.
Lieber made the scathing remarks that...
Okay, so one way of looking at this recent cascade of failures that shut down the entire system is to say, yes, the system is so old that it cannot work properly. But here we have a piece of equipment that was 30 years past its useful life. That means back in 1994, it was time to replace this thing. And whose job was it to do that? Where was the money? Where did that go? What was that spent on? We've had 30 years to do basic maintenance and we're not doing it. And now we're being told that we need to keep investing in such a system that for 30 years has been failing with the little bit of investment that it has been getting. And if a basic equipment failure that shuts down the entire system is such a big deal that it warrants a press conference, why wasn't it such a big deal that it was ever fixed when it was supposed to be fixed? And many people aren't buying the excuse that the money was never there over the last 30 years to fix this thing because after it broke and shut down service everywhere, they magically found the money to fix it.
It's at the tipping point. We have to replace this stuff.
He was a major proponent of congestion pricing, which would have generated $15 billion in revenue for the MTA.
Whose job was it to fix this? And after they left the MTA 25 years ago, who came into their position and was supposed to do their job and didn't do it? Do you see? We've got a lot of failure going on here, and it's not just a one-time thing, and it's not because of congestion pricing taxes of all things. Yes, those would have brought in billions of dollars to the subway. Yes, they were banking on running their operation the way they've been running it for the last 30 years, ignoring equipment failures and just getting a whole bunch of new money. But where is this money going? I looked into that, and according to this Reddit discussion, where anonymous posters give their 2 cents, 58% of the budget for the subway is spent on employee salaries. That's over half the money that they get goes to paying people that might not be doing their jobs. Debt is also a major issue because every time the subway wants to make some sort of capital improvement, they don't have the money to do it, so they sell bonds and go into debt to make their repairs, or to build these fancy new ad-supported projectors telling us about the Olympics, when the old ad spammers looked like this and just showed us a poster. What's wrong with this? Nobody is even looking at this stuff. And it looks like the things that are dragging the subway down are its past failures combined with its current failures and its reactionary method of management. We only fix catastrophic problems after they have occurred, not 30 years ago when they were supposed to get fixed, yet somehow we magically have the money immediately after it goes wrong. And the entire time it wasn't fixed, our excuse was that we didn't have the money, so something's not adding up here. And we're also spending millions of dollars on modernization programs like this cool tap-to-pay system right here. And what most people don't know is these new fancy smartphone readers, they're a replacement for the MetroCard system, which doesn't work correctly. Yes, we know that. But prior to that, we had a token-based system, and there were never tokens lying on the ground that people would leave because those were actual money that would get you into the subway and let you ride it. They did away with those machines, spent millions of dollars upgrading them, and now we have another replacement for them, which also costs millions of dollars, all to accomplish the idea of people getting on the train and riding it. Which could mean that anytime the city is supposed to spend money on the subway, they just waste it, or they go after projects that don't have any meaningful impact on the experience every single day of riders. Riders who just want to get on the train, not worrying about whether or not they're going to be assaulted by someone who's sitting next to them. And now we're going to get weapon detectors that aren't exactly a replacement for New York's finest, the NYPD. The money that's being spent on weapon detectors, couldn't that be spent on hiring more police to keep people safe, or on improving the train service so that more people would pay to use it and then they'd earn more money from fares and then they'd be able to keep improving the system? Is it a novel concept that the MTA now has to rely on providing a service that people actually want to use and rely on and are proud to use and support versus just getting money from taxing cars that was supposed to come down here and fund this thing? What do you think about that? Are weapon detectors the right answer? Is the subway safe? Appreciate you watching. I'll see you in the next video.
Well, just days after congestion pricing was put on pause, new data shows that subway delays are on the rise.
So now that the plan to fund improvement projects is on the back burner, will delayed trains continue to be part of our commute? Fox 5's Lisette Nunez takes a closer look.
So suddenly, after New York City pauses its controversial tax on cars, which was supposed to fund the subway itself immediately gets worse. Critics say the city is getting revenge on its populace for rejecting the license plate readers that would have taxed every car on the road, but proponents of this new driving tax say the subway's delays are proof we aren't paying enough taxes. But the one thing everyone here agrees on is that public transit in the city isn't going to get better anytime soon.
If you've noticed an increase in train delays in the last year, chances are you are not alone.
Subway trains might not be moving as quickly through the station because modernization projects may have to be deprioritized because of Governor Hochul's sudden decision to put the brakes on congestion pricing.
I have come to the difficult decision that implementing the planned congestion pricing risks too many unintended consequences.
85% of the people that come into the Central Business District every single day do it on buses and trains. These are the folks who need the investment.
Mayor Adams says the subway system is averaging about 6 felonies every day. He wants those statistics to improve.
This is video from inside a stalled F train taken by a Fox 5 colleague this morning.
It would have generated jobs, construction jobs. It would have been a boost to our economy. It would have improved transit service for our region.
But many expressed concerns that the program would put more people into the system without a plan to improve service first.
Just when the everyday working man thought he'd stuck it to the system by rejecting financial tyranny, the subway starts falling apart. Almost as if its sudden deterioration is completely on purpose. But even though this might look like retribution from progressive leaders upset that the sheeple of the city haven't gone along with their plans of world domination, what no one's willing to admit is that even if the city taxes every car on the road, none of that money's going to address the real reasons our subway is perpetually terrible, when it already costs billions of dollars a year to operate. Because billions in new revenue might pay for brand new subway cars and platforms, but fancy new stuff won't address New York's mental health crisis, which has led to its shelters becoming so full the homeless have nowhere to live but in the subway itself. And not only is the subway a shelter of last resort for New York's neglected poor, it's also a haven for criminals with assaults, robberies, and knife-related incidents going through the roof, leaving many to wonder how installing elevators and shiny new LED monitors to blast us with TV commercials while we wait for the trains is going to stop criminals from running rampant down here. And how exactly is it going to convince people to start paying for the train? Because the last time I checked, no one does that anymore. Which brings us to the real reason the subway system is perpetually terrible. All the money in the world won't fix a justice system that immediately releases criminals and fails to punish minor offenses. And all of the money the city was hoping to raise certainly isn't going to help the homeless rebuild their lives and get off the streets, since none of that money would ever have been meaningfully spent on mental health programs. And of course, everyone's aware of this. The governor's aware of this, which is why she put a stop to congestion pricing, and everybody breathed a sigh of relief. But behind the scenes, the wheels of wealth redistribution have been working quickly to push as hard as possible for the reactivation of New York City's car tax, which looks like it may happen at some point because all the infrastructure to tax your car isn't going away. On top of that, activists say that all of New York City's problems aren't because of crime or corruption. No, it's because the government here doesn't have enough of our money. And it's been revealed that they're coming to get it, one way or another. New York City subway, full of life and vibrancy, and there's a screen right here blasting me in the face. It's not great down here. No, it's not. And that's what's got activists so riled up, because the taxes and fees that were meant to fix this place, those are no longer on the way because congestion pricing has been canceled. Actually, that's what we've been told. You wouldn't know by looking at this place, but it already costs $20 billion a year to operate. But alas, that's not enough money to make repairs or improvements, and we are likely to see these taxes again in the near future. How soon is anyone's guess? But before we get into when these taxes are going to hit, you've got to look at what the transit activists are so upset about.
85% of the people that come into the Central Business District every single day do it on buses and trains. These are the folks who need the investment.
If you want trains, if you want new stations, if you want signals from this century, think about that. We gotta get this done.
So these protesters, they definitely have a good point. Now that the money's not coming as soon as they thought it was, nothing down here is going to change anytime soon. But what exactly people were expecting to change, based on how expensive this is to operate already, is not something anyone can really agree on. Right now, our $20 billion gets us peeling paint, trash cans that look like they themselves need to be thrown away, cracked $1 million monitors, and elevators that never ever seem to be working correctly. If this is what $20 billion a year gets us, what's an extra $1 billion going to do? Because $1 billion is the amount of revenue that was projected based on the license plate readers, which are an unavoidable toll, and all of that money was going to come down here and go to the subway. But $1 billion only represents a 5% increase over what it already cost to operate this place. Yet we're supposed to believe that an extra 5% in the city's budget was going to change what you see here and make it a magical brand new place with trains that run on time and no crime and just this perfect utopia. Really? But the subway being a backwards, poorly run operation is only part of the problem. And what's even more fascinating than the belief that taxing cars was going to change what you see down here is the people that are advocating for all of this money don't expect it to come from the people who use the subway itself, which critics say makes this the perfect example of an attempt at wealth redistribution.
Standing outside her office, they urged the governor to keep a promise and not make what they called a generational mistake. They accused her of caving to political pressure.
I think it's very short-sighted of a lot of people.
So I get that people are angry with the governor. Some are saying that this is political because there are elections coming up. But the real problem is that this subway, it doesn't make enough money on its own to stand on its own 2 feet. And in the real world, businesses that don't make enough off their paying customers to stay open, they end up shutting down. And you know how the congestion tolls were supposed to generate $1 billion of extra revenue? Well, you know how they arrived at that number? It's only 30% higher than the $700 million the city loses from people who don't pay to use it. And what's crazy is nobody that wants congestion pricing and a better subway also wants people to pay to have to use the subway. Look at that, it's just so weird. It's like they want all of this stuff, but they don't want anybody to pay for it. In fact, these are the same people that usually advocate for the subway to be cheaper, which it can be. The city has ways to help riders who can't afford the full fare to get a half-price ticket. But right now, we're in a terminal that has a police station in it, and these gates are totally unguarded with people just jumping in. They are never going to crack down on fare evasion if this is the system that they just let operate. However, even though the subway itself is obviously a complete disaster, all of that infrastructure that's going to eventually tax cars, it still exists. It's not being torn down, and the governor herself said that this was just a pause. And anyone who grew up in the 80s or 90s with cassette tapes knows that pause and stop are not the same function. They do very different things. But the scuttlebutt floating around now is that there's a plan to reactivate these things sooner than anyone's expecting.
We need to support the governor.
Mayor Eric Adams throwing his full support behind Governor Kathy Hochul's decision to put a pause on congestion pricing.
We got to deal with congestion. We have to deal with environmental issues, but we should deliberate and make sure we get it right.
Adams says that the governor called him about 2 weeks before her announcement to discuss.
Well, would you look at that? The pause on congestion pricing has been premeditated. Everyone knew this was going to happen. Probably because it doesn't take a genius to figure out that if you're going to tax everything on the street, that might be bad for the city's economy. And the reason it's so weird for the governor to say that the economy is the reason why we have to shut congestion pricing down is very strange, because she herself was at one point a big proponent of congestion pricing, and activists say that it will help the local economy because traffic makes people late, slows things down, and that we lose economic activity because we're stuck in traffic. But we're also stuck waiting for delayed subway lines, which cost $20 billion a year to operate. But the likely reason this is why it is now on pause is because the congestion taxes, they were never fairly targeted. For example, they're based on vehicle size, which sounds logical because a small car causes less congestion than a big truck. But the big truck is how your food gets to the grocery store, and that big truck, it was going to get charged 2 to 3 times the amount of money that the cars were going to be charged. And although cars, commuter traffic would only get hit once a day with the congestion fee, business traffic, like those trucks bringing food to the store, they were going to get hit every single time they drove into the congestion zone. And what do you think they're going to do with the costs that they have to pay? They're going to deliver those costs along with the oranges to Whole Foods, and now the oranges are going to cost more.
85% of the people that come into the Central Business District every single day do it on buses and trains.
Right, but we're not asking those people to pay for the subway to get better. Instead, we're asking for businesses and people who have trouble using the subway to pay for it to get better, so that everyone who's down here now not paying for it can enjoy something nicer. And even though none of the benefits of congestion pricing are ever going to be had by actually having it in place, what's very strange is no one at this point is advocating for the tax to only apply to non-business traffic. After all, if 85% or whatever of people can take the subway, why are we taxing the guy in his Mercedes with his laptop? Why are we taxing the 5 people that are going to an apartment to renovate it and improve it? They can't take the subway, but the rich man can. But all of this squabbling over how to get their hands on our money has the city in a rather strange position, because they still have bills to pay, yet they don't have the money to pay it. So now they're looking at creative ways to try and suck more money out of a system that wastes so much of it. And of course, the way they're going about this is extremely controversial, because it's going to hurt the little guy that's trying to rely on the subway and trying to pay to use it. In fact, critics say this is what we're experiencing right now.
Subway trains might not be moving as quickly through the station because modernization projects like new signals that let trains go faster and closer together may have to be deprioritized because of Governor Hochul's sudden decision to put the brakes on congestion pricing. The new signal.
So already we're being told that the disaster that the subway is immediately turning into is because congestion pricing didn't happen when it was supposed to. But what nobody's talking about is that the renovations needed to fix up these trains and make them run better weren't going to immediately happen on day one either. And the system has so many problems and so many delays throughout it all the time that this is going to take years to fix. And the question many people are asking advocates of congestion pricing is, how do we know the subway wouldn't be functioning the exact same way it is today had this system been turned on a couple of weeks ago? Are we really to believe that the same day the system were to be activated, all of its problems would have magically disappeared? Are we supposed to believe it wouldn't look like this even while the cars are being taxed? And the city's also telling us that many of its improvements to accessibility are also going to be delayed because of congestion pricing. But in order to understand why that too is probably not the whole story, we've got to look at the main reason for train delays. Because the issue of train delays is going to expose how pretty much everything that's wrong with the subway has nothing to do with congestion pricing. And look at this, while they tell us that train delays might be the fault of congestion pricing, the MTA's own website says they've been trying to upgrade their signals for over 10 years, 2009. That's absolutely ridiculous. And how are we supposed to believe those delays would go away if the MTA's budget increased by 5% because of congestion pricing? Something about all this does not add up.
Now the head of the MTA said that various experts will look at just what the MTA can afford to do now that its capital program has been shredded by Hochul's decision.
Bottom line, this phase of things are a little crazy and even that there's a crisis.
So look, obviously the head of the MTA very disappointed that congestion pricing didn't happen, but how come we're now being told that all of the stuff that the MTA promised to do, it's no longer able to keep doing? Making it seem like just as the governor was being accused of being political, so is everyone else. This whole thing is being political. We're being told the subway is terrible because we didn't let our taxes go up. And the reality in front of us is that all of the subway's problems will no longer be blamed on mismanagement or corruption. Oh no, they're going to be blamed on the people of New York who decided not to go along with the plans of our leaders.
What are the biggest concerns, do you think?
Well, Christine, for riders is going to be what projects will be put on hold. The initial focus on the need to cut back the program to make stations accessible and stopping the purchase of electric buses will be highly unpopular. There remains to be...
Yeah, so there's no way activists are gonna be happy about this. How on earth could they go about repairing the subway by canceling things like electric buses? Absolutely no one in favor of congestion pricing wants to see something like that happen. Yet when you look at how electric vehicles are already failing across the country en masse, the idea of rolling them out in New York seems like a bad one. And the city's probably gonna save billions by relying on old school technology that just works when you press the start button. Or in the case of an old bus that runs on gas and still just works when you turn the actual key. But New York City doesn't get all of its energy from renewable sources, and it's hard to argue that the environment would be better off if we had a fleet of electric buses rolling around charging on fossil fuel plants just like the subway. But on the other hand, the city's decided to stop doing many of the things that would actually increase the subway's usability. And not only is this going to make things harder for people that just want to use it and go about their day, making the subway less accessible by refusing to fix broken parts of it like these escalators or refusing to install elevators just is going to make it harder for people to adapt to congestion pricing when it eventually happens. Because public transit in New York is something all of us are going to have to get used to, even if its current state makes it impossible for some of us to access.
The elevated platform here on 46th Street is 5 flights up. The 61st Street escalator is broken, so the closest elevator is Queensboro Plaza. Both 36th and 46th Street stations were due to get elevators. It would have cost $17 million in congestion pricing derived funds. The council member has called the governor's...
So the idea of elevators for the subway, obviously it's not new. I mean, look at this thing behind me right here. They've been building these things into the subway for decades now. But as we just heard, elevators may not be coming to many stations because it would cost millions of dollars. And critics are waiting for someone to come along and convince them that even if we were to spend millions of dollars renovating the subway with all this congestion money, that it wouldn't turn out to look just like the inside of that elevator because it would be neglected, it wouldn't be taken care of, and the people down there don't respect it because they don't pay for it. Now, would accessible methods of entering the subway help it? Absolutely, yes they would. I've got 2 little kids, we can't really go anywhere without a stroller, but the problem is I'm not sure I would necessarily want them in the subway, even if there were working elevators. Again, the elevators are absolutely disgusting, and the subway itself, it's not safe. In fact, crime is so bad in the subway, the National Guard is still down there at various times of the day, policing it along with the police, who now do random bag checks. It's essentially a military occupation zone at this point, and throughout the system, you'll see armed guards with fully automatic weapons, and deep down, even though nobody in leadership wants to admit it, throwing billions of dollars into a black hole of a subway system isn't gonna get anybody the results they want. It's gonna take money from people shopping at the grocery store, and we're still gonna have exactly what we have today. And as someone who doesn't drive, at first, when I heard about congestion pricing, I was all on board. I said, this is gonna be great. We're gonna take money from the cars, and we're gonna improve the subway. But once I started looking into exactly how much money is spent on the subway that we already have, personally, that made me feel like they're just gonna waste the extra money that they get, and all of those promises that they're making, they're gonna be broken. Just like the broken elevators and broken escalators that they said they're gonna spend all this money to install, and did cost millions of dollars to install, but now don't even work because we're not maintaining them at all. And in my personal humble opinion, which I almost never give when I make these videos, there's only 2 things we need. Keep me from getting jumped when I'm down there trying to get to work, and make the trains run on time. Is that really so hard? 2 things. That's it. Do that, and then we'll talk about throwing extra money at a system that doesn't work for anybody. What do you think? Is that true? Is that your opinion? Do you have another opinion? Am I wrong about congestion pricing? Should I go back to believing that it's the right way to go? Let me know. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next video.
Well, even though we are getting a break from the heat, those extreme temperatures are still fresh in everybody's mind. So much so, there's a new bill in the city council that would require air conditioning to be provided to all of the city's renters.
So free air conditioners for all the apartments in the city. You know what? This might sound cool, but everyone knows landlords, they're not just gonna buy things for people out of the goodness of their hearts. Instead, they're gonna get the tens of thousands of dollars needed to outfit every one of their apartments with ACs by jacking up their rents. Only this time, critics say the city will be forcing them to do it during the worst housing crisis we've had in the last 50 years.
You are unlawfully blocking the entrance to this building.
Tonight, some 2 million New Yorkers learned they will have to pay more to live in their rent-stabilized apartments, and some of the tenants did not take the news well at all.
Every year the rent goes up, they will send us to a shelter, to a family shelter, but I cannot go there with my mother.
Tenant organizations argue that any increase will have devastating consequences for low-income families.
A new bill introduced Thursday would require all New York City landlords to provide air conditioning to their tenants.
Owners cannot afford to do this in many buildings.
With the rent that I make from the building, I cannot even pay the utilities.
Landlords who testified argued they're operating at a loss and need to be able to cover basic operating costs.
Tenants who attended the meeting did not hold back their disappointment. Some even took their frustration to the streets.
The increases will affect stabilized leases that begin on or after October 1st.
Rents in this city are now so high, many New Yorkers are effectively prisoners, stuck in apartments they can't move out of. But what nobody's talking about is that things are about to get even worse for renters, because if landlords are forced to buy all kinds of new stuff and include perks that don't normally come with apartments today, the rent tomorrow is just gonna go up. Which is a massive problem considering rents themselves are already unacceptably high, with New York City having the lowest vacancy rate it's had in the last 50 years. And this has created a situation where the only apartments available to be moved into are so expensive, most people can't move into them, which is why many people now feel trapped financially and physically in small apartments they can't leave, which means growing families cannot stretch their legs, people stop getting married and moving in together, and even professionals with $100,000 a year salaries are forced to live in tiny little rooms just like they did in college, only into their late 30s until they either move out of the city altogether or get some massive raise or win the lottery. And if that doesn't sound bad enough, many landlords say that the rents they're getting aren't enough to pay their bills because the relentless fees, utility costs, and taxes the city requires them to pay are so high, they say the rent has to go even higher. And that brings us to the real reason why critics say we've got rents in this city no one can afford. It's because the government is taking too big a cut out of the housing market at a time when nobody can afford the places they're living in. And they figured out how to do it while getting tenants to hate their landlords who say that they're in a no-win situation. Yet even now, some of our leaders insist landlords should be spending even more money on their apartments. And although they say it's for health reasons and will save lives, critics say that the plans we've got on the table now are just gonna make more people homeless in the future. So this apartment, it comes with a couple of free air conditioners, and you'd think that that would be normal when you have apartments that cost $7,200 a month. But believe it or not, there are apartments that cost even more than this and don't come with any ACs in them either. And that's because every time a landlord puts an appliance in an apartment, it's then their responsibility to maintain it. The truth is that these were not purchased by the landlord. These were left by the landlord. They are a treasure of the New York City rental market. And that's a very important distinction because this apartment, very large, 3 bedrooms, brand new kitchen with a large separate living room. This place is already as affordable as it can get. And if you force landlords to start adding things to apartments and force them to legally maintain those appliances in perpetuity, the costs for renting an apartment are just gonna go up. And when you consider that air conditioners are rather plentiful and people just leave them behind, do we even need such a law? Well, some people unfortunately think that we do.
A new bill introduced Thursday by City Councilman Lincoln Ressler would require all New York City landlords to provide air conditioning to their tenants.
Just as a landlord provides heat in the winter, they should be providing cooling in the summer.
More than 90% of New Yorkers already have AC in their apartments, whether from central air or their own window units. But even still, the health department says about 300...
Look at that. Right there, the neighbors have an AC. In fact, it looks like most people here in this building and throughout the city in general have air conditioners. But even though 90% of apartments in the city have ACs already, the health department's not concerned about that. They're concerned about the 10% that don't have them, and they're also concerned about apartments that may not have enough ACs in every room to keep the temperature at a safe level. And they point out that landlords already have to pay the heat in the wintertime, so it only seems logical that they pay for the AC in the summertime. And the idea that right now there are people living in very small apartments sweltering beyond belief because they don't have an AC isn't something that anyone should feel good about. But although this might sound like a righteous cause worth fighting for, there are some serious problems with the idea that landlords should now be forced to provide enough ACs to keep every single room in every single apartment the right temperature. Because critics say if right now people are sweating when they write their rent checks in the summertime, once the rent goes up, they're gonna be sweating when they write their rent checks every single month of the entire year, and that's the real problem.
And this year, New York City is on pace to be its hottest summer ever.
But there's an extreme cost to inaction, and we have to intervene now as every year it gets hotter and hotter and more people are at risk.
His bill would require landlords keep units below 78 degrees inside when it's above 82 degrees.
Still not cold. So either way, even though it seems like maybe temperatures are rising a little bit every single decade, the real problem with this plan is that we're now going to legally mandate that landlords pay for something and maintain something that a lot of people either leave behind or throw in the trash when they don't need it anymore. That doesn't really sound like a good idea. And if you've got people throwing away their air conditioners, wouldn't it just make more sense to have landlords take those air conditioners and donate them to the city and let them be free for those who don't want to go out and buy one to come and pick up if they still work? That sounds pretty cheap, and it wouldn't mean the rent has to go up. And even if you're buying one, these are pretty affordable. Here's one for $89. That'll cool a room. But air conditioners, they're massive, they're heavy. I can understand that not everybody who wants one would be able to physically get one into their apartment and set it up safely. But that's not the real issue with this plan. The real issue is that it's going to require that the rooms in a given apartment be a specific temperature. So like right here, we've got a kitchen window which doesn't have an AC in it. How do you even abide by that requirement here? Perhaps you would need ACs in the other rooms that are keeping those cool. You'll have some air traveling in here, and then maybe up here, maybe at the top of this window, you could get yourself a small AC. But luckily this kitchen, which is all brand new by the way, and has a little dishwasher, it's in the interior of the building. So the windows that we have here, they're not facing the street where they're getting direct sunlight, which is gonna heat them up. And here's the other problem that nobody's talking about. Every single appliance in an apartment, it has to be maintained by the property owner and kept in good working order. Most leases stipulate that, like this brand new washer and dryer right here. Now, it's not that landlords don't want to spend money on stuff that makes their apartments better and more valuable, like laundry. I mean, you can't just go get your own laundry and put it in an apartment. That requires special technical work to be done to the apartment so that it can even fit and vent out. And for that reason, landlords probably aren't going to go find a bunch of used air conditioners and leave them in the apartments. If it becomes a law that every place has to have one, you're gonna buy brand new ones. Probably like this Amazon Basics AC right here for $165. 5 rooms, AC in each room, that's $825 for an apartment like this. If you do that 10 times, you're looking at 10 grand. And just because someone owns an apartment